Greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth, the John Campea Show, coming from right here on my YouTube channel. I'm, of course, your host, John Campea, and it is an awesome honor and privilege, as it is every day, to have you, our international friends, gather around the virtual water coolers. We get together to talk about our favorite things in the world, movies and movie news and all sorts of good things. And it can't be an all sorts of good things day unless you got Mr. Robert Meyer Burnett. Robert, how you doing today, sir?
John, I'm good today. I'm looking forward to, I don't know why, looking forward to today's show a great deal, and looking forward to going into the weekend.
Oh, I'm so looking forward to this weekend. If for no other reason, there's another UFC event. Woodley's fighting this weekend. Big UFC event on Saturday. I'm very excited about that. And I hope you guys have a big, exciting, fun-filled, or relaxing weekend lined up for yourselves as well as we're heading into it. Listen, guys, before we get into all of our main topics here, I want to remind you that hey, you can't always watch the John Campea Show. Sometimes you're commuting, you're at work, you're at the gym or something like that. Good news for you, there is an audio-only podcast of the John Campea Show. Just go to your favorite podcasting app of choice and search for the John Campea Show. You should find it. Full audio version of the show. Go and enjoy it there, as thousands of others already have. All right, guys, listen. No off the tops today, so we're going to dive right in to our main topics. And how do we select our main topics here in the John Campea Show? Well, it's really rather simple. You see, you guys come up with them by going anytime, 24/7, over to www.thejohncampeashow.com/contact. Once you guys get there, you're going to see a form. Fill it out with your topic or question. It's totally free. Hit submit, and then maybe, just maybe, you might see your submission featured as a main topic here on the John Campea Show. With that down, let's get into main topic number one. And our first main topic today gets submitted to us by Zach B., who writes, according to Deadline, MGM just announced a new movie adaptation of the beloved musical Fiddler on the Roof, directed by the Hamilton director. That's Thomas Kail. I love the musical and all, but another movie adaptation? What else is there to do? All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, man. And yes, one of the most beloved stage productions, and by the way, award-laden original movie as well that came out in the 70s, I believe, Fiddler on the Roof. So you got Thomas Kail, who's coming along now. He directed the stage, Broadway stage, and off-Broadway, and the movie version that's going to be coming to Disney+. Anyway, this is what comes to us from Variety. Thomas Kail directed the off-Broadway and Broadway productions of In the Heights and Hamilton, winning the Tony Award for Best Direction of a Musical for Hamilton. He directed and produced the live capture film of Hamilton that will be released on Disney+ this July. All right, so listen, I got to tell you right now, I have always loved Fiddler on the Roof. I've always loved it. If I were a rich man. I mean, I there's something about it. I can't remember the circumstances, but my parents exposed me to Fiddler on the Roof when I was younger, and for whatever reason, I always found it fascinating. I find that it's a story that transcends generations. You can tell, I mean, it doesn't matter. Any year I go back and watch a Fiddler on the Roof, whether it's on a stage production on TV or whether it's one of the movie versions, whatever, I've always quite enjoyed it. And to get a guy like Thomas Kail, who clearly knows how to, number one, do a stage musical, and number two, now has some experience with transferring that sort of material onto a screen, it just seems like a perfect fit for me on this. So personally, I really like this news. I think this sounds really fun. Rob, you hear about this. What do you make of them doing another motion picture version, and particularly the guy they're bringing in to direct it, of Fiddler on the Roof?
Well, like you, I grew up with Fiddler on the Roof, and I've always loved it. I think, I always call you a song and dance man, but at heart, I wanted to be one too. So I love musicals, and it's got great songs, and the story is great too. Who are they going to get to play? It's Fiddler on the Roof to me. It's Topol. Topol he's the main character. I wonder who they're going to cast. It makes me want to know who they're going to cast in the lead.
I mean, yeah, and, but I mean, a lot of the songs, like tradition. I mean, right. It's steeped in culture and all this kind of stuff. I just think it's a fun show. I loved the news. I'll be honest with you. I love the news. Hearing that they're going to do another movie version of this, because I think the previous incarnation, I think it was 78, 79, 80, 76. Anyway, right around there. It won like 3 Academy Awards.
Yeah.
I mean, it was done really well. I think this is something that could stand to be done again and revisited every couple of decades. I think it's a perfect thing to do. Question here is, guys, maybe a lot of you have probably never even seen Fiddler on the Roof. Hell, maybe there's some of you who've never even heard of Fiddler on the Roof. You should. Like, give yourself a treat and go and check out the original one. It's just a good, fun thing, drenched in a lot of stuff. What were you about to say, Rob?
I was just going to say, a little breaking news, John, that just dropped since we went on. It's not, you're going to love this. Your boy, Tom Ellis, just closed his deal to return for Lucifer Season 6.
Thank effing God.
Season 6 of Lucifer, dude. He signed the deal.
That's been the one holdup on this. That has been the one holdup on this, because we were talking a while ago about the fact that, hold on a second,
it's at the top of deadline. It just dropped it right after we went on the air.
Yeah, okay. So, yeah, this is very, very good, because I've been talking for a while about how all the other stuff had come into play. Everything else had come into play. All the writers were back on. All the other casts were back on. Yeah. Everything was set and ready to go. And then all of a sudden, they couldn't sign the final deal with Tom Ellis to do Season 6. Everything else was there. Everything else was ready to go. And Tom Ellis's Lucifer is my favorite character on television right now. I love that character. I can watch.
And he will be again. That's the beauty of it.
And finally, he will be again. Because I was starting to get worried. Once I heard that was the one holdup, that Ellis himself had not signed. Everybody else had signed. Everybody else. From the creatives to the on-camera talent, everybody else had signed in September. I've been starting to get worried. So thank you, Robert, for letting me know about that.
I figured you'd like that one.
Oh, hot damn. Okay, that's a huge relief. Okay, now I can just look forward to Lucifer Season 5. Now I can just look forward to Season 5, which is, I think they're going to announce in the next 2 or 3 days. They're going to announce the exact launch date, I believe, in the next 2 or 3 days, which will be in June, is when they're going to launch it. So I'm very excited about that. All right. Thanks for sharing that with me, Rob. All right. Guys, with that down, let's move on to our second main topic today. And our second main topic today gets submitted to us by Stephen Marchant, who writes, "Hey, John, thanks to your recommendation, I watched Paul Feig's A Simple Favor. I love that movie, and I loved it. Wondering if you heard his next project was going to be for Netflix with an adaptation of the School for Good and Evil books. What are your thoughts?" All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, man. And yeah, Paul Feig, listen, unfortunately for Paul, when people hear Paul Feig's name, in some circles, the first place they go to is the 2016, I think it was 16, version of Ghostbusters that he did. That's unfortunate, because he's made some really good, funny, successful films, whether you're talking about Heat or Spy, particularly Bridesmaids, and the one you just mentioned, A Simple Favor, with Anna Kendrick and Blake Lively, and Henry Golding, by the way, is so good. It's just one of those charmer movies that nobody paid attention to. It quietly came in. It was remarkable, and then it quietly slipped away. But it is fantastic. But yep, he just signed up for his next deal, and it's going to be with Netflix. This is coming to us from Variety. Feig, whose credits include Bridesmaids and A Simple Favor, will direct from a script by David McGee, who wrote Life of Pi, so that's pretty good collaboration, and Laura Solon. The book follows the adventures of best friends Sophie and Agatha at the School for Good and Evil, where ordinary boys and girls are trained to be fairy tale heroes and villains. Sophie has princess aspirations and expects to be picked for the School for Good, and Agatha seems a natural fit for the villains in the School for Evil. Yet soon the girls find their fortunes reversed and putting their friendship to a test. Rob, I really like Paul Feig a lot. This sounds stupid. And now granted, let me throw a caveat in there with that. This is clearly, I have never even heard, just full disclosure, I've never even heard of the School for Good and Evil. I've never even heard of it before. This is clearly not something that I am the target demographic for. I mean that's clear. So clearly this is not material that is made to design to me. So for me to sit here and say that sounds dumb, well, it's because it's not made for me. It's not made for I'm not the target audience. Clearly the books have had some success. I will say this though, especially after, I loved Bridesmaids. I love what he did with Spy with Jason Statham and Melissa McCarthy. listen, I like this director. And if he's going to do it, I will give this movie a shot when it comes out. I'm just saying for now, it's clearly not targeted at me as the demographic, so I don't have a lot of interest in it at this moment. But Rob, it is still an interesting fit and going straight to Netflix, which is becoming a common thing. But what do you think about this particular project and Paul Feig's attachment to it?
Well, I mean, look, fairy tale legacies go to school. So it's, I guess, the kids of heroes and villains and princesses and fairy tales, and they're trained to be fairy tale heroes and villains. I'm like, that to me seems like
no, they're ordinary boys and girls. They're not, this isn't like Disney's The Descendants where it's exactly that, where it's the children of famous fairy tale heroes and villains. These are regular boys and girls who go to a school to be trained to be fairy tale heroes or whatever. I don't know.
I mean, this is going to seem weird to say, but fairy tales are stories, you know, and I understand there's so many different TV shows and movies now that are bringing these fairy tales to life, but the whole idea behind it doesn't appeal to me, because the idea that you can go to school to become the star of a fairy tale sort of defeats the idea of a fairy tale in the first place, because so often the characters in fairy tales don't know who they are, and that the story is about them discovering their powers or discovering, like, you know, if you want to consider Star Wars a fairy tale, Luke didn't know about his history or his destiny, and he just thought he was a farm boy working on a moisture farm in the ass end of the world on Tatooine, or the universe. And if he, like, you know what? I went to school to become the hero of Star Wars. Now I'm where I'm supposed to be on Tatooine, waiting for those robots to show up so I can go team up with Ben Kenobi and star in one of the most lucrative franchises ever to hit humanity. I mean, the idea does not appeal to me. Now, again, that said, if, like you said, a simple favor. Simple Plan's a different movie. That's a
very different movie, yeah.
But A Simple Favor, I really liked it as well, and I think Paul Feig is a very talented filmmaker. Ghostbusters, I don't think I have a holistic problem with Ghostbusters, not because it's gender swapped. I just didn't think it did a really good job of creating that world the way the original did, so I didn't believe it. But this movie, it just seems, I don't know, it seems a little contrived. Like, I could see it. It sounds like it's a sketch, like a Saturday Night Live sketch. But as a movie, I mean, look, like with everything, John, I hope it's good. I hope the script starts out as a great script. And I hope they cast it well. And I hope Paul Feig brings what I know he can bring to it. And if he's going to make it, well, I hope it's good. That's all.
I'll tell you what, I'm tempted to jump on Audible and get the audio book of maybe the first one of the series and give it a listen, so I can maybe get a sense about what might, because I don't know, for all I know, the books are fantastic and the story's great. I don't know. But like you, it just doesn't sound like something's appealed to me. Maybe I'll have to check it out.
I mean, it just seems like they're in this description, it says the past alumni of this school are Cinderella and Snow White, and it's like that kind of, to me, just defeats the whole purpose of those original stories. Like, if you could go to school and become Cinderella, would you want to be like a put upon maid that is, is victimized by stepmother? It's just weird.
I haven't read the book, so I don't know. I mean, maybe it's brilliant. Maybe it's absolutely fantastic, but we'll have to say, question is, guys, are any of you familiar, because clearly Robert and I are not, are any of you familiar with The School for Good and Evil? If so, what do you think of its potential as being transferred into a movie version? Jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's move on to main topic number 3. And our third main topic today gets submitted to us by Dylan Mendez, who writes, "Hey, John, I don't know if you heard this, but a Sonic the Hedgehog sequel is in the works. Wow, I really like Sonic. It was a bit better than Detective Pikachu or any other video game movie. What are your thoughts on Sonic getting a sequel?" All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, man. And yes, the official word came out that a Sonic the Hedgehog sequel, unsurprisingly, well, actually, maybe a little bit of surprise, but we'll talk about that in a second, has been given the green light. They're going to move forward in development. This is what comes to us from Variety, who writes, Paramount Pictures and Sega Sammy confirmed on Thursday that they have commenced development on a sequel to the live-action family comedy. The sequel would reteam the filmmakers with Jeff Flower directing and Pat Casey and Josh Miller writing the script. It also goes on to point out that as of right now, neither Jim Carrey or why am I forgetting the name of John Ralphio? Ben Schwartz have yet, it's not official that they will be returning yet, but it is expected that they would be returning for the movie. Rob, I'll tell you what, Sonic the Hedgehog, I said a minute ago that maybe I have a little bit of surprise. Maybe just a little bit of surprise that it's getting a sequel. And the only reason a little bit of a surprise is because it did not do that great at the box office. Like, it did just over 3, but like under 310, like 300 million, 305 million, something along those lines. So it's not like it blew the doors off the box office. And now I know there's a temptation to say, well, it was because of COVID stuff. Well, remember, it was already in its 4th week by the time that Onward even opened. So its box office slowed down. It didn't do that great. But because they were smart and didn't make that movie for $200 million, they made it for about $85 million, which is still expensive, yes, but it's a lot more reasonable than a lot of movies get made for today. The movie actually ended up breaking even and even was a little bit profitable. And I'll tell you right now, I like this movie more than I thought that I would. I didn't love it. I didn't think it was great, but I enjoyed this movie. Jim Carrey kills it. Like, Jim Carrey steals the movie. And Ben Schwartz as the voice is great. I always love, the guy who played, why am I forgetting the name of the guy who played Cyclops?
James Marsden.
Jeez, I don't know why I always talk about James Marsden. Anyway, James Marsden was super charming in it. Ben Schwartz as the voice, sounds great. But I'm telling you, Jim Carrey stole it as Robotnik. He absolutely stole it as Robotnik. And it has its problems, but it's a nice, entertaining little film. So, and the way they end the film, you can tell they wanted, but of course, every movie wants to be a franchise these days, so that's no big surprise. But I'm not surprised that they're doing it again. I thought maybe with it not doing quite as well at the box office as they were maybe hoping it would do, but the reactions to it were pretty positive, pretty good. I mean, I think it's got like a 47% Metacritic rating or something like that. I can't remember, but I actually thought it was pretty charming, and I had a good time watching it. My wife really likes the movie and thinks that movie's like really, really charming. Anyway, Rob, you hear that they're going to do a Sonic 2. Are you surprised that they're doing it, and are you looking forward to them doing another one?
Well, look, if people like the movie, and obviously clearly people did, and I when we first saw, I was with you, or maybe I don't, were you at was it the Paramount presentation? I just saw it at CinemaCon, and I was just like, isn't this video game like 20 years old? So I was surprised that it had an audience at all. I was surprised at the big outcry. Again, before the Snyder Cut, there was Sonic the Hedgehog, and fan outcry got them to redesign the character. And I'm like, pretty cool. I had no connection to Sonic, so the design I thought was goofy when we first saw the footage, and I'm glad they made it less goofy, and I'm glad that people liked the movie. So I'm always pleased when work is rewarded by finding an audience. I think that's good for everybody. And apparently, they were successful in resurrecting this character in this old video game property. And I can see it as being a Sonic 2 will probably do better because people will catch up with it on streaming and physical media and that kind of thing. And if people are really digging the movie, and I'm sure more kids will see it than saw it in the theaters because their parents are like, what is this? And then they're going to see it again. So it makes sense to me that they're going to move forward on one of these because they've already done all the R&D and creation of the CG Sonic character. So they have all those assets already. So the movie's probably not going to cost nearly as much money as the first one did. Obviously, they don't have to pay for the redesign. So I think, hey, if you're a Sonic fan and the studio and the company, was it Sega, feels that it worked out for them, well, let's move forward, I guess.
All right, question here is, guys, what do you think about this? I don't think a lot of surprise, but maybe you look at the box office results, the first one, maybe a little bit surprising. I agree with Rob. I think a second one could do, if they make it good, could do a little bit better than the first one. What do you guys think about this? Jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, with that down, let's move on to main topic number 4. And our fourth main topic today gets submitted to us by Alan B. And Alan B. writes, "Greetings, John and Rob. With the announcement that Cineworld and their theaters like Regal planning on opening again in July in time for Tenet, what do you think the chances are that other theater chains like Cinemark and AMC will do the same? Thanks, and bring on the social distance filthy." All right, thanks a lot for saying that in, man. And yes, of course, on yesterday's show, we talked about the fact that Cineworld, which is, of course, the company that owns Regal and several other movie theater chains, put out a statement that basically said they are planning to be open again in July. That is their plan. They are going to be open in July, and they specifically call out that they want to be open in time to meet Christopher Nolan's film Tenet and Disney's Mulan, which comes out theoretically a week after Tenet. So they were the first ones out of the gate to come out and said, we are going to be open in July. Now, just because they're saying that, we got to keep in mind, we don't know what's going to happen between now and then. That's still over a month away. But that's maybe things get a lot worse and the government says, hey, that's great that you want to open these theaters, but we're not going to let you. That could happen, but it does look like things are heading in that direction. And they've now come out and made a statement to their shareholders. We are going to be open in July. Following that, one of the things I've been really fortunate about is that surprise, surprise, a lot of people who work in movie theaters watch this show, which of course, because they love movies. But I've gotten a lot of correspondence from people over the last year or so about particularly the last few months, about the stuff going on within the movie theaters and sharing some internal memos. I had a few people reach out yesterday, and really this isn't going to surprise anybody at all, but apparently both AMC Theaters and Cinemark have already started internal communications that they are also planning on being open in July, which means an announcement should be coming fairly shortly, probably in the next 48 to 72 hours, maybe just after the weekend. We're going to hear from other theater chains as well that they are also planning on being open in July. AMC had actually put out a statement a little while ago, Rob, suggesting that they were going to be open in June, that they may even be open mid to late June. So whether or not they hold on to that, I don't know. But as of right now, it does appear that all the movie theater chains are indeed planning on being open, at least the major ones, come July. Now, Rob, you and I have talked about the fact that we have other countries that have already started opening their movie theaters. Yeah. And even we talked last week, the number's probably higher than it was then. But last week we talked about how the number of theaters opening had doubled. There were now 200 theaters in the United States opening. Rob, seeing what is happening now, and this is not just something that's changing and taking on new dimension month to month or week to week. It also feels like this is a topic and a story that's evolving and changing day to day. So right now, knowing that Regal is planning on opening their theaters, restaurants in Los Angeles apparently are going to start opening this week. Hearing that now other movie theater chains are also planning and communicating internally that they do plan on being open for when Tenet releases, all this kind of stuff. Where does that put you right now on we'll put the shoulds aside for a second. Where does that put your thinking right now on will these theaters actually be open when July 17th comes around and Tenet is supposed to open? Where are your feelings right now about whether or not that will actually happen? What do you think?
Well, obviously people certainly want movie theaters to open. They want to be out and about. They want their normal lives back, which I totally understand. And again, I think it really depends on where we're at. We're not the COVID deaths. We're almost to 105,000 deaths in America. That if the COVID deaths go down, then I could see that they could open. Look, I think all of our economy needs to open, and again, we need to do it carefully and we need to do it methodically and safely. But I think that, it really depends on, John, I went to the grocery store, my local grocery store yesterday. There's somebody standing outside with hand sanitizer. They sanitize the carts, the push carts that you use. after everybody. They let people only in one door and out another. And I feel relatively safe. It's the only place I've really gone since we've been locked down since March. And I feel very safe there. And I think that if movie theaters are equally diligent about that, I think that maybe it could work out. It really depends on, is it viable for the studios? Do they feel Tenet? Because for me, man, it's all about Tenet. I just want to see Tenet, John. And does Warner Brothers feel that their investment in this very expensive movie can be returned with the movie theater situation the way it's going to be on July 17th? And I think that's really where we're at. They've said they have to have New York and Los Angeles theaters open. It's going to affect their decision. And I see that there's a lot of people taking the kind of precautions they should be around here. And maybe, yeah. I mean, maybe they can open. But again, like you said, we're 45 days out. So I've always thought, and we've talked about it on this show, that they'll probably make a final decision by June 15th at the latest.
Right.
And I guess we'll know.
I think this is the interesting thing to me, because like I said, a lot of Los Angeles counties are now saying that announcements coming this week, they're going to start reopening restaurants, right?
Yeah.
With limited capacity and, a lot of safety precautions, things like that. But, you and I have said on this show before, at least I've repeated this several times, is that I would feel much safer sitting in a movie theater than I would in a restaurant or in a grocery store.
Yeah.
But if the grocery stores do what you and I have been talking about, they make me feel very comfortable. When I go to the grocery store, I feel very comfortable because our grocery stores, at least here where we live, have acted in really good faith. Like, they have just done the right things to make us feel safe going in and doing what we need to do. If restaurants can do that as well, and I feel like those are more at-risk environments than, say, a movie theater, I'm starting to feel more and more confident that they're going to be able to hit this milestone, barring unforeseen spikes or drops or whatever. Like, barring the unforeseen, right now I'm feeling even more confident that they will have these things open. Warner Brothers still hasn't budged. We, of course, heard Bob Chapek say the other day that they're not budging, at least he's saying that we're not budging on our Mulan release date, which is the week after Tenet. So I'm feeling more and more like this is going to come to be, and it's just going to take some time for people to get comfortable with it, I suppose. Yeah. So the question, though, is for you guys, what do you think about these reports coming out that come July, when Tenet is supposed to be out in theaters, the theaters will be open? What do you think about that? Can they actually cross that line? Or do you think at this point that's still just way too optimistic? Jump down to the comments section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's go into kind of an unscheduled main topic number 5. And there's no email for this one because this one is just something I'm kind of bringing to you. Now, before we get into this, and you guys have seen the title of today's episode, which is the Superman stuff. Before we get into the Superman stuff, let me say something very clearly. In the world of movie news, all right, my site is Billy Bob's gas station movie reviews.fart. All right. In the world of movie news, I'm an analyst, a pundit, a commentator. That's what we do on the job. We're not my YouTube channel is not a breaking news show. Very, very, very rarely do I ever get into this scoop thing. Like, hardly ever. And so you should take anything, because I am not a legitimate news site. I'm a commentary site.
What?
Because of that, you have, when I give like breaking news and I'm saying I'm bringing something to you for the first time, you have to take it through the lens that I am not Variety. I am not The Wrap. Other YouTube channels, websites should not run with this story. They should not quote me. They should not run with this story, because I am Gus's gas station movie reviews.fart compared to The Wrap and all these other legitimate news source sites. Okay. That being said, this is something that came to me yesterday, and I wrestled with whether we should even talk about it on the show. I wrestled with it so much, Rob, that I got on the phone with you.
Yep.
I called you yesterday, and I laid out what had been dropped on me. And I talked to you, said, is this something we should talk about? Because you know me, I don't like running the breaking news thing. I was still so distraught, I actually sought out a couple of other people as well. As a matter of fact, Harloff, like I got on the phone with Christian Harloff last night and said, okay, this is what's dropped on me. What do you think? Should we talk about this on my show or not? And everybody that I talked to said, yeah, we should do it. So let me lay this out for you and be very clear about what's going on here. We found out the other day that Henry Cavill was, it just so happened that this news dropped on the same day that I dropped that editorial on my case for Man of Steel that I'd been working on for almost a week.
Which, by the way, you didn't plan. I've been asked if you did that, and like you had no idea.
No. I actually had some people. Why did that come up? I actually had some people say, "Oh, Campea, your sources told you that Henry Cavill was going to do that, and that's why you did that thing." I'm like, I'd like to think that was true. I would love to think that. Yeah, I had the inside scoop. I knew for a week that Henry Cavill thing was coming. I did not. I wish I did, but I wish I could tell you that a week before when I started working on that editorial that I knew that, but I didn't. I wish I could. I wish I did. I wish that was true, but I did not. But of course, anyway, the story came out that he was going to be back in talks. Now, of course, one of the things that I was concerned about, and you know me, there's Henry Cavill right behind me right there. You can see his arm. I love, and if you saw my editorial video on Man of Steel, you know how special of a place that movie has in my heart. The one thing that concerned me about the Henry Cavill news was that there was apparently no thought about a standalone Superman movie. It was all going to be Superman appearing in other people's movies. And my fear, because of how CW has treated their Superman as a jobber, that they were just going to bring in Superman to be a jobber. I said, I'm going to choose to believe they're not going to do that because they've treated Superman with a lot more respect in the movies. Like even in Justice League, love or hate Justice League, when like Superman is treated as the answer. And when Superman shows up, first he beats the asses of the entire Justice League by himself. And then when he shows up, he kicks Steppenwolf's ass from pillar to post. They treat Superman as Superman should be treated, as the granddaddy of all superheroes. So I'm going to believe they're going to treat him right. With that said, you guys will remember the other day that I told you that one of the guys who initially told me about the Ben Affleck situation, that Ben Affleck was indeed out as Batman. This was 2 years before they finally confirmed it. But 2 years before they confirmed it, one of the guys who informed me that Ben Affleck was indeed out as Batman got in touch with me again when the Snyder Cut stuff broke and it was supposed to cost $20 to $30 million. And I told you guys on the show that this guy got in touch with me and said, yeah, that ain't true. With a number that was actually floated was $70 million, not 20 to 30. And I told you guys about that on this show. And of course, it was Rob, I can't remember if it was the next day or 2 days later, the chairman of Warner Media and the head of HBO Max came out and said, yeah, it's way more than $30 million. His words were, I wish it was $30 million.
Yeah.
So that turned out legit as well. So take this with all the caveats that I've given before. I got reached out to by one of the guys who told me about the Batman situation that said, and I'm not going to quote directly here, but basically said this: J.J. Abrams is doing Superman. And what this person told me was the reason they're not making any announcements about standalone Superman right now is because they want JJ to still have some flexibility to make those decisions. But it very well could be Henry Cavill. Following that, I reached out to the one individual who told me about the $70 million was the closer number to the Snyder Cut. Also was one of the three sources that told me about Batman, who confirmed what the first source said. Yeah, Abrams is doing Superman. But their thing was, and it's already settled, Henry Cavill is going to be J.J. Abrams' Superman. Now, whether J.J. Abrams is going to be the producer of that movie with his Bad Robot banner, or whether J.J. Abrams would be directing or writing, I don't know, but it'll be J.J. Abrams' Superman. J.J. Abrams has been given the guiding thing on Superman. Now, we know that there was talk in 2019 that JJ's response to the Superman stuff was, we haven't officially had any official discussions about that yet, which means they had already been talking about it over drinks. So, again, to lay this out, I've been told by two separate sources, both of which have given me valid Warner Brothers information before. Not to mention, they were also the ones that told me about the Chris McKay and Nightwing situation. They were the ones who gave me that. And you guys remember, I was the first one to tell you guys about that. And they were the ones who gave me that information as well. They're both saying that J.J. Abrams is going to be doing Superman movies, but then they diverge a little bit. One saying that Henry Cavill could very well be that Superman. The other is saying, actually, no, Henry Cavill is going to be that Superman. So that's the information that has been given to me. And again, this is from the same sources who gave me the stuff about the cost of the Snyder Cut, the Ben Affleck leaving as Batman, and the Chris McKay stuff on Nightwing. Rob, you and I then got on the phone last night. Now, I'm just walking everybody through. This is the process of this. And I remember saying to you last night, I said, does this make sense? Is the information I'm being told, does it make sense with the things that we know that are facts? And I remember asking you that. I said, does this message, does this what I'm hearing sound like it lines up with reality? And Rob, what was your response to me when I asked, does this sound like it adds up? What was your response to me?
I said, it absolutely sounds like it adds up because, and I pointed out to you that back in 2002, J.J. Abrams wrote a script. I mean, it was known as Superman Flyby, that first Brett Ratner was going to direct and then McG was going to direct.
Actually, McG was going to direct it, and then Ratner came on, and then Ratner left, and then McG came back.
Right. It was a weird, but there was a lot of work done on this project. And when I was working on Superman Returns, I had all of the animatics that were done for Flyby, and a lot of those were adapted in Superman Returns in various ways. But the script was written, and what people don't understand a lot about how studios work is if you write big properties like this and the studios paid a lot of money, these projects linger. Speed Racer, I was reading Speed Racer scripts when I was at Warner Brothers in 1990, working there at Silver Pictures. And it took 15 years for Speed Racer, actually more, to get made, but it eventually got made. So the fact that Warner Brothers has made a gigantic deal with Bad Robot, and we've had TV shows, they're like, there's going to be a Green Lantern series or whatever. What better way to announce to the world that J.J. Abrams has come and put up his shingle at Warner Brothers than to announce that he's making the biggest movie, the biggest superhero. He's coming back to the biggest superhero that he's taken a crack at before. I would think that would be a natural. It's not something. And I also said about Henry Cavill, you don't bring a star. Hollywood doesn't work this way. If you're the star of 3 movies, your character, and the star of, say, Man from U.N.C.L.E., Warner Brothers has a history with Henry Cavill.
Don't forget The Witcher. The Witcher.
And The Witcher, I mean, they're in the Henry Cavill business. You don't bring Henry Cavill back to play the supporting role in multiple movies. No, actors don't do that. They just don't. I mean, I believe that he would come in and do cameos in all of these movies, whether it's Aquaman 2 or, another Wonder Woman movie or Shazam or whatever. I believe that that's true, but I mean, you're not in talks with the studio to come play supporting roles. You're in talks with the studio to come back and play the lead role in a lead movie. And Warner Brothers has Bad Robot and J.J. Abrams. And while I am not a fan of his feature film output, he's already worked for Warner Brothers on Superman before, different regime, different time, sure, almost 20 years ago. But I think it's fairly obvious if you look at if you're a student of Hollywood and how the business works, it makes sense. Now, they can't say that yet because it's not a done deal. And I can see that Henry Cavill, J.J. Abrams, they have to leave a director open to cast who he wants to cast in the lead role, because whoever's going to be cast in the lead role, it's probably going to be the thought that we're going to make 3 more movies with this person. But I also know, having watched all the casting for Flyby and for Superman Returns, it's really hard to find somebody to play Superman, and Henry Cavill is a great Superman.
And by the way, on Flyby, one of the guys, there was Ashton Kutcher was being looked at for Superman. There was another, I'm trying to remember who the other actor was, but then there was also a 21-year-old Henry Cavill was being looked at to play Superman at that time. Rob, here's why this rings so true for me. This is why this all kind of makes sense to me and why I ultimately thought, okay, yeah, let's tell everybody. Listen, I decided to tell you guys what it is that's come across my desk. And here's why it rings true for me. Warner Brothers is going to do another Superman movie. I mean, that much is clear. J.J. Abrams wants to do that. Once he signed that $500 million development deal and brought Bad Robot and his shingle over to the Warner Brothers lot and all that kind of stuff, and he's already kind of acknowledged that they've at least talked about this stuff, his connection to Superman before, they're going to do it. The reason this rings so true for me is that if you're Warner Brothers, do you move forward with having Henry Cavill appear as Superman in an Aquaman 2 or a Shazam 2 if you're just going to do a standalone Superman movie with somebody else playing Superman? That makes no sense to me. That makes absolutely no sense to me. To me, it kind of says that if they are going to get Henry Cavill in these initial things, then that to me says, and I don't know this for a fact, but to me that says, oh yeah, so when you do Superman again, you got to be using Henry Cavill at this point. You have to be. And you know, Rob, you pointed some stuff out to me in our phone conversation yesterday that just connects more of the dots to all of this. One, Henry Cavill appearing on the Zack Snyder stream when they announced the Zack Snyder cut. Two, the convenient timing of negotiations, which, by the way, these negotiations have been going on for a while. This isn't something new. These negotiations had been going on and look enough like a lock that they had Henry Cavill be on that stream with Zack Snyder for that announcement. Three, the fact that they're saying he's going to come back and be in these other things. Rob, when I look at that, I take this information that got passed on to me. To me, I feel like I can say, I think all the evidence points to that. I will say that I believe it is very likely at this point that we are going to see Henry Cavill back as Superman in an actual Superman movie. Because you also raised the other good point there, Rob. With maybe the exception of Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, who hasn't done a DC movie yet, by the way. They keep talking about it, but it still hasn't happened. He's the biggest movie star there is in the DC realm right now. There's nobody else who's a bigger movie star, not to mention with, The Witcher was like the #1 show on Netflix, broke all sorts of records for them. He is the biggest star they have right now. Does Henry Cavill, with all the clout he has right now, get all excited, as you were saying, about coming into playing a supporting role? Woo! I'm going to come back and play a supporting role when I've been the lead as this character before in this. So the one hitch to me is that even though I have both of these sources telling me that, yeah, JJ is going to be doing Superman, whether or not that means director or producer, and he goes out and gets another director to work with him as a producer, I don't know. Even though one says it's pretty much a done deal already, Cavill's going to do it. The other one is saying that it could be Cavill. It very well could be that, but the other source wasn't sure. So there's still, even in my sources, a little bit of an ambiguity thing there. But yeah, I want to just be careful when I tell everybody, don't take anything I'm saying here as fact, because I mean, there's still some wiggle room there. But I think from everything that we've been seeing and hearing, when you look at all the dominoes that are being lined up, I'll call it. I think it's very, very likely that within the next 6 months, we're going to hear that Henry Cavill is starring as Superman again. Now, remember, the Ben Affleck thing, it took 2 years for that to get verified. It took 2 years from when I first told people that Ben Affleck was indeed out. It took them 2 years to come out and come clean about it. So I don't know how long it's going to take to find this out, or we might find out in 3 months. Guess what, everybody? Tom Cruise is the new Superman. I mean, maybe that happens. But I think at this point, it feels safe to say that we're going to see it. It's going to happen. Rob, given what we've been told, and given all the facts that we already know from the stuff that you laid out, what do you feel the likelihood is that we're going to see Henry Cavill actually playing Superman here in a lead as a lead in a movie of his own?
100%. Because and I say 100% because the fact that, look, people need to understand that the fan pundit community needs to understand when stories come out in the legitimate journals, Deadline, Variety, Hollywood Reporter, when they finally drop, for the most part, they are already done deals. It's just you're hearing about these things take months. I mean, Henry Cavill being on that live stream with Zack Snyder, the Hollywood Reporter story, which talked about Toby Emmerich going to Zack Snyder 6 months ago. They've spent the last 6 months getting the Snyder Cut in order to the point where they can actually make it, because it is a very interesting situation. And when we have the head of Warner Media talking about, well, there was a lot of negotiating that we had to do. There was we had to talk to guilds. Everything that we've been saying on this show, John, for the last 6 months was true. Because the business of Hollywood works the same way. It's not like they're reinventing the business. And I'll tell you something. Are you kidding me? Do you think after Mission Impossible Fallout that someone like Dwayne Johnson wouldn't want to play Black Adam and fight Superman in this movie? Like,
they're friends. Don't forget, I believe they have the same manager, and they're friends in real life.
The thing about it is that everything about Henry Cavill coming back to play Superman is the stars are so aligned. And like, I don't know how you would work Dwayne Johnson into a Black Adam movie and all that, but we already saw Superman at the end of Shazam. We just didn't see Henry Cavill's face, but Superman was there. So are you kidding? I mean, do you think that if Black Adam is beating up on Shazam, that Shazam's friend is not going to show up at the end of that movie and say something like, Black Adam, would you care to step outside? You know, and render aid to the Marvel family? Are you kidding me? I mean, who wouldn't go bananas watching that movie? And that's how you bring Superman back to Warner Brothers and DC. And once Superman renders aid at the end of Black Adam, what are they going to have right on that launch pad? J.J. Abrams, Superman, starring Henry Cavill. People would go bananas. And I'll tell you something. It's the right thing to do. It's from a business standpoint. You can't lose. They're already spending how many tens of millions of dollars on the Snyder Cut. They're reestablishing Henry Cavill's character sans mustache because Zack Snyder already shot most of that movie. And if you're in the business with Henry Cavill, you think Henry Cavill's not going to come back and do any reshooting that he might need to do for Justice League, to get over. I mean, it's all from a business standpoint, all of these things, by the way, it's already been done. Whatever they've decided to do, it's already happened. We just don't have all the I's dotted and the T's crossed. We'll hear about it as it comes along. And as the world reemerges from being shut in and production begins, we're going to hear a lot about this. But right now, there's no reason to drop this news. They've given us enough. They've given fans enough. You got the Snyder Cut. You've got the confirmation that Henry Cavill's in talks. And if he's in talks, it means they're out of talks. They just haven't decided to release the actual news. I mean, I think it's great. I'm excited. 100% though. He's going to star in another Superman movie.
Yeah, and listen, I've got to also admit something, and because I'm sure there's a bunch of people already thinking this, and I got to admit something. I may be looking at this through a little bit of rose-colored glasses, and I admit that because in 2013, a lot of people keep telling me they started following me when they first saw my Man of Steel review in 2013 and how much I love that. You guys know I just did that editorial. You guys who've watched my show for any period of time know how much I love this particular guy standing behind me, Henry Cavill. He is my favorite Superman of all time. I think it's one of the greatest. You guys know my thing. So I will admit there's a possibility here that wittingly or unwittingly, I might be looking at all this information through the rose-colored glasses that I am admittedly a Henry Cavill as Superman fanatic. So I have to admit that. It's true. So maybe I'm looking at this through a little bit of a lens of bias and kind of coming to these conclusions because it's what I want to be true. Now, I'm not saying that is the case. I'm just saying I have to acknowledge that there's a possibility that there might be some of this that's because I want it to be true. And that's fair. That's fair. But go ahead, Rob. What were you going to say?
Well, I want to point out something that even though Justice League did not work, and the Snyder Cut notwithstanding, Aquaman did phenomenal business. Who would have ever thought it would have made over $1 billion? Wonder Woman did phenomenal business. Ben Affleck never got his standalone Batman movie. I think if they made another standalone movie, I mean, Man of Steel, sure, they might have thought it was going to make $1 billion, but if you look at what the Marvel Cinematic Universe did with the introduction of its individual characters, Iron Man, Thor, Captain America, Man of Steel outgrossed all of those movies. And the way the superhero genre has evolved since Man of Steel came out, you do a Man of Steel movie, you do another Superman movie with Henry Cavill, with J.J. Abrams directing, I think you're about as assured of $1 billion gross as you could possibly be, because everybody still likes all of those characters. And remember, the fan community forgets we're very vocal because we're always talking to each other and watching each other's videos and talking amongst ourselves about our fandom. The general population, for the most part, liked Henry Cavill as Superman. They're not as critical as we are, and we tend to believe our own conclusions when sometimes they're not supported by the actual facts. So the fact is, you put Henry Cavill in a Superman movie directed by J.J. Abrams with the kind of visuals he brings to his films, I think it's a Bad Robot's happy, J.J. Abrams is happy, Cavill is happy, and fans will be happy. And Warner Brothers is going to make $1 billion. So
there you go. The question for you guys is, what do you think about all that? Taking what I have been informed of, taken by what we've seen, what are you thinking about that? Do you think J.J. Abrams just comes in and says, I'm going to produce this, and he brings on a director to work with him? Maybe he directs it himself. Little thing here. Actually, I'm just getting a message here. 1 second. Let me bring this up. Somebody is writing to me. Somebody saying, check Henry Cavill's Facebook feed and the photo that he just dropped. So I'm going to do that right now. Hold a second. I should be doing this. Henry Cavill Facebook. Let me see if I can even find his Facebook page. Let's see here. Apparently he just dropped a picture, and it's Henry Cavill in a gym. Here's the picture that just kind of came out. It's Henry Cavill taking. Look at the freaking silhouette on Henry Cavill. Jeez, that guy's a genetic freak. And he's in the gym there, and his caption there is "Hello, old friend." Now, of course, that just might mean him saying that he hasn't been in the gym in a while. Although when I look at that physique, that silhouette, you can't tell me that it hasn't been in the gym in a while. So I don't know. We'll have to see. The question, though, guys, is simply this. What do you think about that? Are we going to see Henry Cavill? The die is already cast. Warner Brothers has already made their decision. J.J. Abrams' Bad Robot is doing a Superman movie, and it's going to be Henry Cavill, and they're just not telling us officially yet. What do you guys think about that? Jump down in the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys.
That's
With
so
all
funny.
that down and out of the way, I'm sure there's going to be a bunch of you that are going to want to talk about this in the live questions part of the show. And by the way, you can send in a live question to be on the show once Rob and I come back. Simply go to streamelements.com/movieblogtv/tip. You can find that link in the top line of the description of this video, so you can just go click it. Once you get there, just fill out yours. You'll be getting your question on the show, and you'll be supporting the channel at the same time. So with that said, Robert and I are now going to take just a couple of minute break here, rest the vocal cords, stretch the legs, refill on my Zevia drink. You guys can run and use the bathroom. Talk amongst yourselves. Hang tight, guys. Robert and I will be right back. are back. Thank you so much for your patience and indulgence as we took a little bit of a break there. Now, let's move on and start taking your live questions. We're going to start things off here with Alex Pitt, who writes, Stephen King is my favorite author, and these are my top 6 film adaptations of his. Number 6, Gerald's Game, which was actually really good. Number 5, Misery. Number 4, It, 2017. Number 3, Stand By Me. Number 2, The Shining. Number 1, The Shawshank Redemption. Those top 3 are amongst my favorite films of all time. And of course, Shawshank Redemption to me is a top 5 all-time greatest motion picture ever made. And Rob, it's still amazing to me today that a lot of people are still surprised to hear that that was a Stephen King adaptation. But Rob, I know you are a lifelong Stephen King fan. You've read all the books. What do you think about that list? And what are some of your favorites of his movie translations?
I think it's a really strong list. I always, people forget this, but I have to say that one of the best Stephen King adaptations was the first, and that was Brian De Palma's Carrie. That was based on his first novel released. The people forget that because the film came out, I think, 75 or 6. And I think that movie's an incredible film. Piper Laurie and Sissy Spacek as the title character. It's an amazing film. John Travolta, Nancy Allen, and with De Palma's technique. It's an incredible movie, and people forget that. But yeah, I mean, Shawshank Redemption, Stand By Me. You know, I have to tell you, other Stephen King adaptations that I think get a short shrift, Needful Things, a book I thought was way too long. Needful Things I really, really quite enjoyed. I think Dolores Claiborne, which was made after Misery, another Kathy Bates starring Stephen King adaptation along with Jennifer Jason Leigh, a great film. And I gotta say, I really love Tobe Hooper's the long version, the 2-night version of Salem's Lot. Now, I haven't seen it in a while, but man, I got to tell you, when that kid floats up to the vampire kid floats up to the window, the fog's outside, he's Mark, open the window. Man, I was so freaked out when I watched that. And the first time they aired it, they aired it at 11 o'clock at night or something, or 11:30, after the news. And you just knew, it was like, what kind of craziness is this? And it lived up. Reggie Nalder, it's great. Loved it.
Awesome. All right. Jedi Laurie writes, speaking of Michael Shannon, I met him at a private screening of Man of Steel with Michael Shannon in Chicago 3 weeks after the movie released in 2015. It was pretty cool to hear him talk about the movie and his role after the screening. I don't know why I love those so much. Whenever I get to go to a screening where the filmmakers or one or two of the actors are there, I really appreciate that. Like, even when I went to go see wrestling or Fighting with My Family, they had the cast there, and it's just, I love those sorts of things, and I love it when actors take time to do stuff like that. So Laurie, I wish I could have been there. I've never met Michael Shannon. I've always wanted to talk to him ever since I saw him in Boardwalk Empire. I mean, he's just tremendous, and he was an amazing Zod. All right, Nick S. writes, hey, John, I'm still absolutely crushed about San Diego Comic-Con. You and me both, brother. I'm sort of intrigued by the virtual portion, but I'm not getting my hopes up. What do you think it's going to compose of, and do you think we could see any big trailers? Thanks. I'm not expecting any big trailers dropped at the virtual part of it. I'm sure studios will drop big trailers around that time, because if, like we talked about earlier, movie theaters are starting to open up again, you're going to start to see trailers coming out again. Comic-Con reached out to me and asked me if I wanted to do my Masters of the Web panel this year virtually. And I declined this year. I think you got to, the Masters of the Web panel, I just think is something you got to be there for, you know what I mean? And so I opted not to do that. So the Masters of the Web panel will be back again next year, but I'm feeling you, Nick. I am really, as the closer we get to July, the more I'm feeling the fact that, I'm not looking forward to Comic-Con because we don't got Comic-Con this year. I'm hating that. Nelson writes, Hulu, Netflix, Disney Plus, and even freaking YouTube Premium all have free trials when signing up. HBO Max has no trial and is the most expensive service of them all at $14.99 a month. Recipe for disaster. I don't know, Rob. I mean, Hulu does pretty well at that big expensive price point. It is curious to see them not offer that free trial at first. Maybe their attitude is, hey, listen, we're HBO. You know by now what we are. You don't need a free trial for us, blah, 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 blah. I mean, I don't know. What do you think about that? Because we talked yesterday on the show, Rob, about they've had a bit of a disastrous launch. Their launch has not gone smoothly. It's had some people grumbling and stuff like that. But what do you think about their idea about the price point they're at? Which, by the way, I feel like even though it's the most expensive of the bunch, when you look at what you're getting on HBO Max, when they give you everything they say they're going to give you, and when they're even available on Roku or Amazon or anything like that, but when you look at what you're getting, I get it. Disney Plus is like $8 a month, and I get it. But $15 a month for all the content you get on HBO? I don't think that's unreasonable at all. But Rob, what do you think about their launch and these sorts of policies they have?
Well, first of all, I think the price point's fine for what it is, absolutely. But, I think they wanted to. When Disney Plus was launched, I was very impressed by their functionality, and I thought it was really well done. I really enjoyed that. And I haven't looked at HBO Max yet. I actually signed up for it, but I haven't looked at it yet. I've just read what people have complained about. And I think, they wanted to get it out there. They wanted to jump into the fray. I think they'll refine it as they move along, but I don't think that you necessarily have to, like you said, they don't need to give away. Everyone knows what HBO is, and there's plenty of stuff on there to justify what they're charging at launch, and I think that it's fine, and you want to criticize it, okay, but it's really about the content. And I've read things that, this content's not up there yet. Well, yeah, it'll get there. Just like I know somebody that works at Disney Plus. And it takes a while to get all this. It's not just putting stuff up. They don't just throw it on a server. There's metadata that they have to encode. It's a huge process. And when you've got how many hundreds of episodes of television and movies, it's a process. And they'll be adding to it all the time. So, hey, it might have been a bumpy launch, but I think they'll work it out in the end.
All right. And by the way, I've got a few people. Now, I have not been able to sign up for HBO Max because they launched without being on the biggest streaming platforms in the world with Amazon Fire and, of course, Roku. So I haven't launched. But I am people in the live chat are saying that there is a free offer, a free trial period for HBO Max now if you give it a shot. So, again, I don't know if that's true because I can't try it because I have a Roku. Anyway, next up, Ben writes, John, currently on Amazon, you can pre-order the book, The Secrets of Tenet, inside Christopher Nolan's Quantum Cold War. Quantum effing Cold War. The trailer now makes a bit more sense. Surprised they let this out into the wild. Could be nothing, could be everything. Rob, you hear? I've not heard about this, but you hear about this, the Quantum effing Cold War. What does that shed some light on the trailer that you saw? Have you heard about this? What do you think about it?
Oh yeah, as a matter of fact, Mr. Washington himself, I read an interview with him that he was surprised at just how much the main trailer that just dropped gave away. And it makes sense to me. I mean, the idea of quantum entanglements and look, this kind of stuff, parallel universes and all that, I'm all in. And how cool is that we're getting a big budget sci-fi feature that's not about time travel, but it's about quantum physics. I'm like, that is so Christopher Nolan. I cannot wait. I'm all in.
A lot of people are going to be excited about that. Okay, next one up, we've got Tyson Waters, who writes, I could just be remembering incorrectly, but I thought the only reason Zack Snyder didn't finish Justice League was because of the whole thing with his daughter. How do you put this? Look, what came out, that was the initial story. But there was a lot more behind it. Warner Brothers wanted to go in a different direction. There was, Rob, you remember this at the time, of course, but before they started shooting Justice League, there was a strong movement within Warner Brothers to take Zack Snyder off the movie even before they started shooting. But ultimately, they made the decision to stay with him because they were only 2 weeks away from starting shooting. Like when Batman vs. Superman came out, they were literally only weeks away from starting shooting, and they made the decision last second to do that. So, yeah, I don't know. Anything more you want to give on that?
No. I mean, other than what you just said, I mean, I agree with you.
Yeah. So it was more than that. That's what they went with, and I think they handled it well. I think everybody handled it well. But
I should point out that again, these decisions, I blame what happened with Justice League entirely on Warner Brothers management, and the same fate that befell Justice League befell Suicide Squad. It was all part of the same They were chasing after what Marvel was doing. They balked at their filmmakers' approaches. They were listening to all kinds of things they shouldn't have been. You know, if you're a studio and you have hired a director and you've allowed that director to make a film, it is your job as the studio to watch the film as it develops. As I've said before, when I was at Warner Brothers, the executives watched dailies every single day. They would go to watch dailies. Now they're online. I'm sure people don't. But what happened with both Suicide Squad and with Justice League is Warner Brothers management got scared. They had their upcoming AT&T bonuses at stake, and they panicked. And both of those films suffered. And in the case of Justice League, it was a much higher profile project. And I really think that Zack Snyder got screwed and he was betrayed by the management of Warner Brothers at the time. I honestly believe that.
Listen, everybody knows what I think of Man of Steel, and I like Batman vs. Superman. I honestly thought the best decision they could have made was just to fire Zack Snyder before they started shooting Justice League. Because by moving forward with Zack Snyder, they weren't doing Zack Snyder any favors. They weren't doing themselves any favors. Like, it would have been, and now granted, this is hindsight, things would have been much better for everybody if they had just said, you know, Zack, we haven't gotten the results we wanted out of the previous movies. We're going to change directions here. And then just done something different from the beginning instead of saying, you're on a short leash, Snyder, and then tearing apart what he did into it. It just would have been better for everybody if they had just said, you know what, if you're not comfortable with what Zack Snyder's doing, then don't let him start on another one just to pull it out from under his feet later on. I just think to this day it would have been better for them if they just went with a new director for Justice League in the first place.
Well, I think, though, that, you know, Batman v Superman, it's not like that was some disaster. I mean, that movie made almost $900 million. It's just their management thought that was going to be a slam dunk billion-dollar movie plus.
It should have been. It's Batman versus Superman.
Yeah, but even then, they made him cut that movie down. You know, and you know as well as I do, the ultimate version of that movie was much better than the version that was released.
I don't agree.
And I think,
really? I think it was a slight improvement. But I'm going to tell you this too. It would have made less money at the box office. They put out a 3+ hour cut of that movie. It makes less at the box office than it did.
I don't know,
I don't think it makes more.
You know, that Ultimate Edition adds a lot more of Henry Cavill in the movie.
It does, and that's the part I like about it. But you and I have a friend in the industry who raised the best point about the Ultimate Cut. And he said, the problem with the Ultimate Cut is that when you're doing a new cut of the film, it's not just, all they did with that was backed a dump truck up to, they took Batman versus Superman, backed up a dump truck and just dumped a whole bunch more footage in there. He said, this movie would have been so much better if they had added a bunch of the new footage and edited some of the other stuff out to create a more streamlined film. And then, you know, we have a friend who created the Arkham Cut, which to me is actually the best version of Batman versus Superman, is this thing called the Arkham Cut. And I think that was part of the mistake. The mistake was they just dropped a whole bunch more stuff in without taking anything out and actually doing a proper re-edit of it. And to me, it just felt like a longer version of the movie rather than a different take on the movie. But I agree. I still preferred it a little bit more than the original theatrical cut, mostly because it added more Henry Cavill as Superman. That's my bias, though. That's my bias. So I didn't know. Okay, let's move on here. Ryan Lohner writes, one of two, my crazy idea for the Labyrinth sequel, a grown-up Toby has to go through the Labyrinth for whatever reason, with us never getting a good look at Jareth as he just quickly appears in shadows, maybe with some Bowie sound bites. Then when he finally reaches the end, Jareth says he's chosen a new form Toby should like and steps out Jennifer Connelly. I'll tell you Rob, I want to know what you think about this. I'll tell you my initial reaction to that is, I think The Rise of Skywalker just showed trying to pass off as if the actor who played a certain role and has since passed away is still there doesn't work. I mean, to me, that didn't work, so I don't think that works. But I know, Rob, you're game for anything that has Jennifer Connelly in there. What do you think is the approach they should take with Labyrinth?
Well, I mean, I think that's I think that's the approach they should take, is bring Jennifer Connelly back. What I would like to see is, how does an experience, I mean, if I was going to make a movie like this, when you have an experience as a child, and it would be a metaphor for anything that you have when you're a child, and it is indelible or it makes a big impression on you, how does that resonate through the rest of your life and deep into your adulthood? And when maybe that experience comes back around. And that's why I think having Jennifer Connelly in the film is key to making that movie successful. I mean, yeah, you could do a reboot and go back and, I mean, this is Lisa Henson's producing it, and after Dark Crystal Age of Resistance, I think they can do no wrong. But that's the approach that I would take.
All right. We're going to find out more, I'm sure, in the coming months. James Knows What's Up writes, currently watching the double feature of The Wizard of Oz and The Wiz. I think I'm the first to mention The Wiz on your show. In the 7 years I've been watching. No, I know we've talked about The Wiz. I know we have talked about The Wiz. And sure, but that's a hell of a double feature. The Wiz, listen, it's been a lot of years since I've watched The Wiz. But I remember I watched when I was younger, and I don't know. I hear a lot of people say a lot of things about The Wiz. I just remember when I was younger and I watched it, I thought it was fun. Rob, do you got any memories of it?
Dude, I saw The Wiz 4 times at Seattle's Coliseum Theater, which was kind of a soda stick grindhouse, even though it was once a grand theater. I loved The Wiz. I saw it. I mean, I loved it. Ease on down the road. I loved it. I mean, say what you want, but I'll tell you, John, have not seen it since. So when did that come out? When did the Wiz 78, 79, something like that?
I was a child when it came out, so yeah, I can't even remember.
Let me see.
It's certainly, at bare minimum, it's been a while. October
24th, 1978.
Jeez.
So I was 11 or something. Oh no. Yeah, I was like 11. I was a kid. But I loved it. I mean, I loved it because, you know, I love The Wizard of Oz, obviously, and I love the take on it. I love because I don't know. I mean, I was starting to really come into my movie fandom. It's the same year Superman the movie came out. Star Wars had come out a year before. So seeing any kind of fantasy takes on things. Plus, I love the music. You know, as a kid, I love the music. Same year as Grease, you know, the Saturday Night Fever soundtrack had come out the year before. I had the Grease soundtrack. I knew all the songs. And The Wiz, I had the record. I listened to it incessantly.
All right, next up, Lee Crow writes, I like HBO Max. I was an HBO Now subscriber, and it just switched over seamlessly. Same price, same UI for the most part, and more content. If your PS4 is hooked to your main TV, you can use that to stream. I don't want to have to switch between devices, though, to stream content. I am also an HBO Now subscriber. I'm a fan of HBO. I like HBO very much. But how you launch without having deals in place for the biggest streaming platforms in the world, there's just no excuse for that. There's none. You've known for years that you had this thing coming. There's just no viable excuse for it, for not having those things ready to go. But I hope when I do get to try it, I hope I enjoy it as much as you, because they do got a lot of really good stuff on there. And HBO, again, I am a big fan of HBO and their content. They are the standard bearers as far as constant, consistent quality of the content they produce. They are the standard bearers. All right, Mandalorian of Gondor writes, one of two. If you had to choose between a world where only original screenplay movies and the franchises they spawned got made, or a world where only adapted screenplay movies and the franchises they spawned got made, which would you choose? For example, Godfather, Star Wars, and Alien are all original ideas that went on to have more, while the MCU, Lord of the Rings, and Jurassic Park are based on something and went on with more. And that's not even including the standalone films. Thanks and good luck. We're all counting on you.
Godfather is based on a book.
I was going to say Godfather is based on Mario Puzo's book, so there's that as well. So that goes over to the adapted. One of the other greatest films of all time we were just talking about, Shawshank Redemption, is an adapted movie. That's got to get moved over as well. So I'm going to tell you what, I don't know. It's tough, and that's why I love the fact, because there have been some people, Rob, that have said they think they should make just one screenwriting category. Screenwriting, period. I disagree, because I believe the art of writing an original screenplay is a very different art than the skill set it takes to adapt pre-existing material into something. And so I am always going to be an advocate for them having two separate categories for that, because they are fundamentally different things. And listen, and you're right, because everybody will want to rush to say original. But then you think The Godfather, the MCU, Shawshank Redemption, some of the greatest. So I don't know. Jaws. I don't know.
The Exorcist.
I literally don't know. Rob, if you were put on the spot and you had to choose right now, push a button, it's only going to be originals or it's going to be adapted. Which one do you go with? I got to take a push myself, but what about you?
If you're giving me, I have an answer.
Oh.
I'm going to take adapted. And I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why. Because I think with adapted, when you have a great novel or a great comic book, or even like, Stanley Kubrick, my favorite director, a lot of his movies were based on books. And even when he did Dr. Strangelove, it was based on a serious book that he changed around and turned into one of the greatest black comedies ever made. And I think once you have that kind of the basis of that material, if you've got a great book or something, the percentage of that you're going to make a great movie out of it, I think goes up. Originals, I think, are a harder proposition. I think original screenplays, as you very astutely pointed out, are like magic. When you get a great original screenplay, and as someone who was part of my job back in the 90s, I was a reader. So there was a time all I did for a job was read screenplays. 99% of them are bad. And when you get a screenplay that's good, it's like finding, it is like Rumpelstiltskin spinning gold out of straw. It's an amazing thing to have. Whereas when you get things that are already published or already like comic books or books, they've already been vetted by somebody. So they've already gone through the process of whether or not they're good or good to great. Somebody has already deemed the story worthy and has edited that story and gone over that story. So it's already gone through one process of elimination. Whereas screenplays, man, let me tell you, it is really, really hard to write a great original screenplay.
So true. All right, next up comes us from the Wakanda Forever writes, move over John McClane, two classic action crime films I grew up on, the original Shaft 1971, the 2019 film was shameful. I didn't think it was shameful. I thought it had its moments, but yeah, could have been much better. And Action Jackson, the Carl Weathers classic. They say this cat Shaft is a bad mother. Shut your mouth. But I'm talking about Shaft, then we can dig it. Of course, the original Shaft, I mean, that's iconic. Action Jackson, I have found, and I think with Mandalorian, more people should go back and check it out. Action Jackson was a lot of fun. Now, they clearly wanted that to be the next great action franchise, and it never materialized otherwise. I have always had a soft spot in my heart for Action Jackson. All right, Wakanda Forever also writes, boy, I got to get this fan fixed. It was so hot in here last night. I swore I saw the devil sitting in the living room. Comedian Robin Harris in House Party. He was always one of my favorites. Try to keep the noise down, John. LOL. Everyone have a good day. You know what? I don't remember the line, Rob. I don't remember that line.
No.
That was so hot in here last night.
It's a great line.
It is a great line. I love that line, but I don't remember the line. That is a good one. Thanks for sharing that. All right, Dan Ketchum writes, oh, that's just dandy. Here comes lens flare Superman. Well, two things to keep in mind with the JJ thing. Number one is not as important, but the appeal to, there's a reason Warner Brothers signed a $500 million deal with JJ Abrams. He comes and does Star Wars. And look, we can talk about all the other circumstances surrounding it, but the bottom line for Warner Brothers is this. JJ comes in and does Star Wars, makes the highest grossing Star Wars film of all time. He comes in and does Star Trek in 2009, does at the time the highest grossing Star Trek film of all time. There is a success that comes along with JJ Abrams. But listen, the other thing to keep in mind here too, though, is this. I don't know if JJ would actually direct this Superman, or whether he will just be the executive producer with his company, Bad Robot, overseeing production, and he brings in a director. Hell, I never thought it would happen again, but maybe even Zack Snyder. Maybe. I mean, I don't know. Maybe it would be JJ directing. Maybe it would be somebody else directing. But there are these things you got to keep in mind that the studios look at him and they say wherever he goes, he just brings success. And then on top of that, he may not be directing. He may just be producing. He might bring in another director. So these are all things we got to keep in mind, Dan, at this point. All right. An anonymous viewer writes, hey, John, with SJL being made and the current COVID-19 affecting movie production, I don't even know what SJL is. What are your thoughts on them making the originally planned Oh, Snyder Justice League? Is that what you mean by that? The original? What are your thoughts on them making the original planned Justice League Part 2 in an animated movie follow-up? Not much. Not much. Yeah, now if you're talking about if you're talking about Justice League 2, that's one thing. Rob, somebody brought this up the other day. There are still people out there who believe this was true, and it was debunked a long time ago, that the Justice League movie, would you remember this, was going to be split into 2 parts?
Right.
Justice League, The Dawn of Justice, and Justice League Part 2, Enter the Night, with the KNIT. Remember that? That was never true. That was fake. That was a fake thing that got started on Reddit, and a bunch of people bought into it. I don't see them doing it as an animated follow-up. I don't see them doing that. By the way, I finally got around, because somebody actually sent in a $50 tip yesterday saying, John, I'm sending this in. Just please watch Justice League Dark Apocalypse War. So I'm like, well, damn it. All right, I'll sit down and watch it. It's awful. It's awful. The animation sucks. It's just, I don't know what it is. Marvel and DC, straight to home videos, DC and Marvel stuff generally suck. There are exceptions. There are some good. But Rob, have you seen it yet?
No, but
dude, here's how cheap it is. Here's how cheap it is. Here's how cheap it is. Okay, there's a scene where there's supposed to be these parademons, except they're not parademons anymore. Now they're paradooms, because every parademon is also Doomsday. He made all the parademons little Doomsdays. So there's millions of Doomsdays. And there's this here. This is just an example of how cheap the animation is. There's this scene where they're looking on the outside, right? And you're on Earth, and now there are parademons flying around patrolling the area, right? So like 3 parademons. So this is just an example. So whereas you think you'd have a parademon, flying around like this and flying around, they don't even do that. They just have a parademon not animating it, just doing this. Sorry. Nothing moving on it. The wings aren't moving. No movement. It's a stick. It's a figure like this going, look, it's flying across the screen. They didn't even animate it. It's literally a still shot of these 3 parademons, and they don't even bother animating it. They just have it moving across the screen. And that was just kind of indicative of it. I thought it was awful. And at the end of the day, it's all for nothing, because it's, oh, wow, this was all really bad. Lots of consequences. A lot of bad things happen. Oh, well, flashpoint it. And this never happened. And I hate that. I hate that. I just watched this and I'm like, oh my God, this is so bad. I mean, they had a couple of cool ideas. Like, I won't go into all the little details. Like they have Darkseid fighting another villain character. I won't say who or what or anything like that. And that's a cool idea. And that was kind of slick. But just overall, I thought this was so cheaply made, so badly done. Oh, I didn't like it at all. I'd really be curious if you watched it to know your thoughts on it. If you get a chance to watch it, I'd be very curious to know your thoughts on it. But anyway, there's that. Okay, sorry, I got off on a sidecar there. All right, the sock writes, or was that anonymous? No, that was anonymous. All right. The sock writes, HBO, wait, how did this happen? We're smarter than this. Roku, apparently not. Yeah, a little bit of prequel action there. How did this happen? We're smarter than this. How do we launch without all the titles we said we were going to have? And how do we launch without being on the 2 biggest streaming platforms in existence? How do we launch with fewer downloads on day 1 than Quibi had? I don't know. That's a good question. They got to be asking themselves. Listen, they're HBO. They'll recover. I just don't.
They haven't done a good job of defining what HBO Max is, as opposed to HBO Now, as opposed to HBO Go. People opposed to yeah. They don't know. People don't know. They needed to start some kind of an information campaign to explain to everybody, like, what's up with this, guys? I don't know.
Yeah. Anyway. But hey, listen, it's HBO. They will figure it out. And they will be great. Of that, I have very, very little doubt. But it is astounding to me, especially an operation like HBO would just drop the ball so badly on a launch like this. It's amazing to me. All right, anyway. Star Wars Rocks writes, hey, John and crew. So it looks like Batfleck is becoming Flash Fleck. Why would Affleck leave Batman only to become the Flash? I have no idea what you're talking about. I don't know where you're reading that, if that's on another Gus's gas station review.fart site, but I've not heard anything.
We got this covered.
Yeah, we got this covered is reporting that. I mean, it might be true, but at this point, I have heard nothing of that. I've heard nothing of that. If you guys have heard of that and think it comes from somewhere legitimate, please do let me know, because I am a bit of a Ben Affleck freak. All right, John Argo Rodriguez writes, last week I ordered a 22 Zevia Cola pack on Amazon after hearing you for so long recommend it as a healthy alternative, and it's great. With that being said, Zevia, sponsor him, you sons of bitches. That is, of course, the motto of my show now. Zevia, sponsor me, you sons of bitches. Listen, I gotta tell you, I really like this product. And they don't sponsor me. Although they did just send me two free cases. I'll give you that. They just sent me 2 free cases. Thank you, Xavier. I appreciate that. But yeah, I've been talking about this every day. I had to get off the cola. I had to get off drinking so much. First of all, cola, because it's just, and then off the diet cola because there's the artificial sweeteners are terrible for you. So I finally had to find a way to get off that. I found somebody recommended it, Zevia, to me. I call it Zevia. Some people tell me it's supposed to be pronounced Zevia. I don't give a shit. It's I like it. That's all the important thing is I like it. And it's a nice, much healthier alternative. And I enjoy drinking it. So thank you for that. Zevia, sponsor me, you sons of bitches. See, other people buy the product because I talk about it. No. But thank you for sending me the free cases. I do enjoy it. All right. John Argo Rodriguez also writes, 1 of 2. I may be the only person in the world to think this, but as much as I love Leslie and Ben, I think it should have been Leslie and Mark Brendowitz getting together in Parks and Rec. Mark Brendowitz was in season 1 and then in season 2 disappeared. I really love Leslie and Ben, but in season 1, Leslie was in love with Brendowitz, and I believe the show was setting them both up to be together. So when Mark suddenly disappeared and was never mentioned after season 2, I felt robbed. The funny thing is, while I liked the character, I did. The removal the character just wasn't working nearly as much as the Ben character did, because they got rid of that character, who, by the way, was also in a romantic relationship with Ann Perkins. Ann Perkins, who in the course of that show was with no less than 4 characters. She dated and slept with 4 characters in the show. There was the Mark character. There was then she was dating the Chris Pratt character when we first meet her. Then she was dating the Tom character. And then at the end, she ends up with Chris. She ends up with Chris at the end. So yeah, they ended up having Ann date every single male character on the show. But honestly, that was probably the smartest move they made on that show. They moved that character out. They brought in the Chris and Ben characters, which was a marked upgrade. Not saying the actor wasn't great, but I'm just saying the characters they brought in was a marked upgrade. And I thought the audience I certainly felt a much better dynamic and chemistry between Leslie and Ben than Leslie and Mark. So I see where you're coming from, John. But I got to respectfully disagree. I actually thought the move was quite brilliant, and I thought it worked much, much better. That's a good sign of a show that's willing to sit down, say what's working, what's not, and then pivot away from what's not working to something that might work a little bit better. But I'm sure you're not alone. I'm sure there are others that would have loved to have seen him come back. I especially thought it might have been good to see him come back for the final season. I thought maybe they might bring him back for 1 or 2 episodes in the final season, but they never did. All right, Jordan Genovese writes, hey, John, in a stream a few days ago, you said that you were going to watch Stargirl that day. Have you since? And if so, what are your thoughts? Also, do you think if Cavill is received well in his next supposed movie, we could get Man of Steel 2? Well, we've already talked about that ad nauseum. Yes, Rob, I also went off and watched Stargirl. I watched the first 2 episodes of Stargirl. That's awful. It's not good. It's not good.
Oh, really?
Although I got it, like the idea for the show that they set it up with, like the Justice Society versus the Injustice Society. Joel McHale, totally shocked me. Joel McHale was there as Starman in episode 1. First of all, I love Luke Wilson. I didn't know Amy Smart was in it. I love Amy Smart. I love her. So it was really cool to see Amy Smart was being in there. The show is garbage. The show is absolute. I think it's the worst show the CW DC versus ever tried. I thought it was terrible. And again, no disrespect to anybody else who likes it. And if you watch it and you liked it, great, more power to you. That's awesome. But if Jordan is going to ask me my opinion of it when I watch it, I thought it was absolutely dreadful. I thought it was, now maybe it gets better, because remember, I thought the first 3 episodes of Spartacus was some of the worst television ever made in history. And then it went on to become one of my favorite shows of all time. Maybe that could happen with Stargirl. But I'm not gonna watch any more of it. I'm gonna have to wait maybe in 8 weeks. If a bunch of you guys write to me and say, John, oh my God, it gets so much better, give it another shot, maybe I will. But for now, the first 2 episodes are just, again, Rob, much like Apocalypse War, I'd be curious if you watch the first episode or 2 of Stargirl and let me know your thought on it. See,
because I'm a huge fan of the Justice Society of America, so I want to watch it.
It's the opening scene of episode 1 is really cool because it's a flashback. I think it's 10 years earlier when it picks up, the show starts with this epic climactic battle between the Justice Society and the Injustice Society. And it's a really cool start. But I'll tell you one of the things that bothers me about the show, and this is not the reason, I'm just saying this is one little thing about it. I hate these, what's the name of the Disney channel? Not Disney Plus, but it was Disney XD. Like one of these Disney XD shows where the 15-year-old child knows better than her parents.
Yeah, that drives me crazy.
That type of stuff really drives me nuts. And I'm watching this, it's like, okay, Luke Wilson's an idiot, and this 15-year-old child, she's the smart one. And it's like, anyway, but then it's just badly done. But again, I hated the first episode of not Lucifer. I hated the first episode of Legion. I didn't like the first episode of Legion. I went on to love season 1 of Legion. I didn't like the first few episodes of Spartacus. So I don't know. Maybe it. I would love to know your opinion on it, though, Rob, to see if it differs from mine on that. All right. James Hoffman writes, Space Force just dropped on Netflix. Oh, is it out now? Is it available now? Space Force just dropped on. That's what James is saying here. James is saying Space Force just dropped on Netflix. Watching it now. It's super funny. The chimp scene in episode 2 is hilarious, and the comedic timing of Steve Carell and John Malkovich is great. Well, I know what I'm doing this afternoon.
Yeah, I know. I was like, yep.
I'm going to be watching some Space Force because I think the trailers have been fantastic for that. James, thank you. They've been dropping the trailers. I didn't realize it was dropping already. Thank you so much for that, James. All right, Diamond Dog's Puppy writes, hey, John and Rob, guilty pleasure film of the day is 1991's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, The Secret of the Ooze. Ernie Reyes Jr., Super Shredder, the Turtles, and Vanilla Ice wrapped up, go Ninja, go, wrapped up in a cowabunga bow. My favorite Turtles film by far. Thoughts? Well, Diamond, it's a great example of a guilty pleasure because a lot of people don't like it. And I will admit, I'm also one of them. I was not a fan of The Secret of the Ooze. As classic as the Vanilla Ice Go Ninja Go scene is, and it's right up there with I Drink Your Milkshake. As great as that moment is, it doesn't but that's what a guilty pleasure movie is. One that, even though a lot of other people don't like it, if for whatever reason it's got a special place to you, that's good. So you remember that one, Rob? You're not a big fan of Secret of the Ooze?
No, because I got to tell you, I really liked the first Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the 1990 version, and I thought the second one, they embraced all the wrong lessons, I thought.
And surprisingly, that first Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie that Michael Bay produced, that came out a few years ago, I thought was surprisingly good. I actually quite enjoyed it. I didn't like the second one they did with Stephen Amell, which is too bad because Stephen Amell is great, and I was kind of hoping they would have given his character more to do. But I actually liked that first one that they did. It was far more charming. With Tony Shalhoub as the voice of Splinter. I mean, I thought that was great. All right, the Cinemike writes, hey, John, all episodes of the original Fraggle Rock are now streaming on Apple TV+. There you go. Aaron and I were just talking about that. Dance your cares away. It's their first licensed content on the service, but they only acquired it because they will do the reboot. Check Vulture Report for more info. Your thoughts? I mean, listen, I remember Fraggle Rock. I love Fraggle Rock, and Fraggle Rock did a lot of interesting things, like between the Trash Heap, which I always thought was a really fascinating character, the Dozers and all that kind of stuff. I love Fraggle Rock. And they've been talking about a return to Fraggle Rock for a very, very long time. Rob, what do you think about them bringing back Fraggle Rock?
Hey, man, again, you're talking Henson and all that. If it's as good as Dark Crystal, bring it on.
Oh, I don't know if it's as good as Dark Crystal, but I really do like Fraggle
Yeah,
Rock.
no, but I mean, in terms of reboots, they were killing it there. So,
all right, let's see here. Diamond Dog's Puppy writes, just started binging Breaking Bad last week. You're in for a treat. For the first time, it was so intense, I took a break. Then out of nowhere, put on an episode of Justified. Wow. Started binging that. Wondering which show I should complete first, Breaking Bad or Justified. Well, listen, with Justified's great. In Breaking Bad isn't in my top 3 TV shows of all time or anything like that, but there are a lot of people out there that are. It's tremendous, strong finish, all that kind of stuff. I mean, yeah, I would say get through Breaking Bad because you just need to. Rob, if you had to recommend one of the two, which of the ones are you recommending?
Well, I've got to go Breaking Bad because Breaking Bad, the story is just incredible all the way to the end. And I like Justified. I like Timothy Olyphant. I thought it was a good show, really good show, but Breaking Bad is next level.
All right, next one up comes to us from James Argent, who writes, the Mandalorian documentary episode today, which I have not seen the newest one yet, was about practical effects, aka Baby Yoda episode, which went into how Baby Yoda, IG-11, the props, and Krill were all made. That sounds interesting to me.
That sounds good, right up my alley.
Yeah, so you haven't seen that one yet, Rob, yourself either?
Nope.
I'm looking forward to it because I know you and I both really did quite like the last episode where they went into, because they were actually doing what a documentary series should do, right?
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to watching this next one. All right, Russell Amador writes, hey, John, thanks to HBO Max, I decided to do a trip down memory lane and watch The Town. I love The Town. I recall seeing it when it first released, but I don't think I fully appreciated it for what it was. But after my second viewing last night, man, that movie is awesome. Listen, it's the movie, because up until The Town, Rob, correct me if I'm mistaken, so he had already done Gone Baby Gone. And it was before he did Argo.
Right.
It was The Town that made people realize, oh, that Gone Baby Gone wasn't any fluke.
Right.
This dude knows how to direct. Holy shit, Affleck's a good director. Then, of course, he did Argo after that, and was won Best Picture of the Academy Awards. I love The Town. I think Jeremy Renner is also tremendous. The chemistry between Jeremy Renner and Ben Affleck's characters in that movie, I think, are fantastic. It keeps you guessing. It's got all of a kind of a Departed feel to it a little bit. I just love that film. Rob, what are your thoughts on
I do
The Town?
too. You know, Gone Baby Gone is an actor doing a vanity project, according to the industry, but it was The Town where people realized, oh, it wasn't a vanity project, and he really knows what he's doing. And I like both those movies, and I loved it. I love The Town. I own The Town. I have the Blu-ray. I've Gone Baby Gone and The Town.
Oh, such a good movie, and thank you for reminding me of it because now I want to go back and watch it again. It's been a beat since I've watched The Town again. I need to go back and watch it again. All right, the Wakanda Forever writes, John, I know you know what has been going on in LA, Minneapolis, and around the country. Yep. No politics or soapboxes. I just want to say, as a fellow human being, the anger is real. But people, please don't hurt yourselves and others. You and Ann stay safe. We will. And listen, look, everybody knows I have a very firm no politics issue on this show because whatever political persuasion we are, left or right, doesn't matter. We're all film fans together. And here, that's an important thing. And we try to keep politics out of it. I will say that there are certain times that are more trying than others to not, say something and whatever. But it's not that I try. Somebody once accused me of being afraid to talk about bigger things in the world. It's like, no, I'm not afraid to talk about anything. If you want to know my thoughts on politics, whatever, you can follow my Facebook page. There I'll just forget that I'm a movie pundit on Facebook. I'll do that there. But it's just that we can get that everywhere we go. And I feel like, at least for myself as a film fan, I need a place that is an oasis where all that stuff is left to talk about in other forums and on other platforms. Here, we can just come in and be movie fans together. Do I have my own particular set of political beliefs? Of course I do. But here, we're just film fans together. That's it. You can have the same political beliefs as mine. You can have the completely opposite side of political. It doesn't matter. We're film fans together here. That doesn't mean I don't acknowledge that there are some bigger important things in the world. But as Rob and I often talk about on the show, here on this show, we're not talking about the bigger events. We are talking about this defined set of walls that is movie fandom, and that's what we talk about here. So good thoughts on that, Wakandan, and absolutely everybody stay safe. That's important. All right, Tristan Rivera writes, hey John, you see the good news piling up. As I said yesterday, Warner Brothers will announce Ben Affleck's Batman sometime in the next week. Past Batman with Rob and present Batman with Ben. I would love that, and thanks again for being here during my paper grading. I have heard, listen, I'll say this. I have heard nothing about Ben Affleck ever coming back as Batman. That said, if that were to happen, my studio in here would become I flex the wrong muscle in living form. I would absolutely joy-jism all over the place were I to find out that Ben Affleck was coming back to play Batman.
Especially if he was directing the movie.
Oh my God. If he was coming back to direct a Batman movie with him playing Batman. Yeah, joy-jism would be all over the place, my friends. All over the place. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think that in the least. I think this is a very, very different set of circumstances that led to the departure of Ben Affleck from Batman than it is for, say, Henry Cavill as Superman. So we will leave it as saying I do not think that's going to happen at all. But oh my God, I would love it if it did. I would love it if it did. But look, everything we know. You think there's actually any legitimate chance that we can see Ben Affleck as Batman again?
No. I mean, look, in this day and age, anything's possible, John, but I just don't see that happening. I don't. However, you know, he was writing a Batman script with Chris Terrio, and we know that was going to happen. And, you know, with the release of the Snyder Cut, HBO Max, maybe. I mean, who knows? You just never know. My inclination. No. Here's what I want to be clear about. I love when people come back to us and they go, you know, 3 years ago you said this was going to happen, and see, it wasn't going to happen, and then see, it happened. Well, you know, the world changes, and when you say something that what you believe in it at that particular time. If the situation changes and you have new information, you can believe something else. With the information that we have right now, on this moment, on this show, I do not believe that there will ever be another Batman movie. However,
with Ben Affleck.
With Ben Affleck. Right, with Ben Affleck. However, tomorrow I might find out, much to my surprise, that there can be a Batman movie. Now, then people are going to come back, hey, you were wrong about Batman. No, it's not that you're wrong or right. It's that the information that we have leads you to a conclusion. When you get more information, you can change your conclusion. What I believe right now is that Henry Cavill is absolutely going to play Superman in a J.J. Abrams directed Superman movie. Because why wouldn't he? And I believe that 100%. I do not believe that Ben Affleck is going to suit up and play Batman again, nor do I believe that he's going to direct a Batman movie. However, we live in interesting times. I always say that.
We live in interesting times. And Rob, I just noticed the clock. We've kept you way over time. I know you got other stuff you got to do.
So late.
Listen, so in the meantime, brother, where can people find you and your adventures online?
You can find me on Twitter at BurnettRM, find me on Instagram at Robert Meyer Burnett, or find me on my own YouTube channel, The Burnett Work, and my show, Robservations. And yes, everyone, I know that Rob Liefeld is starting his podcast, and he's called it Robservations as well. So find me on Robservations.
He did not.
He did. Now, in his defense, he did have a column in Wizard magazine once back in the 90s called Robservations, which I don't remember.
Fair enough.
So.
Yep. Fair enough. All right, dude, listen, have a good one, and I will talk to you later, my friend. Have a great day,
man. All right, I'll see you later.
So you and I, guys, we will continue on with our questions. We got a bunch more to get through, so let's keep right on flying here. The next one up, Wakanda Forever writes, my all-time funniest movie scene, hey, all right, there it is. Buongiorno, boys. All right, yeah. I'm telling you, baby, that's not mine. I don't even know what that is. This is from Austin Powers, I think. This sort of thing isn't my bag, baby. Austin Powers. This, again, my favorite Austin Powers moment ever is in Goldmember, where Michael Caine goes, there are two things in this world that I cannot stand: intolerance of other people's cultures and the Dutch. That's still, I think, the funniest moment in any Austin Powers movie of all time. I miss Austin Powers. All right, Bibabic writes, Benedict writes, have you watched Orphan Black with Tatiana Maslany, who I believe is a good Canadian girl, if I'm not mistaken? Awesome show, especially first season when you still figure out what's going on. Intriguing concept that starts with her meeting lookalike and stealing the identity after her twins jumps out in front of her train. I saw the first season, if I'm remembering correctly. I saw the first season. And it's a season I liked, but for whatever reason didn't continue on. It's kind of like Better Call Saul. I watched a few seasons of Better Call Saul, and I like it. And for whatever reason, I stopped watching, and I'm not sure why I did, but that's one I do not believe I watched it all the way through. But yeah, she was great, and she was supposed to get a lot of Emmy buzz. There was a lot of people supporting her for Emmy stuff. I don't know if she ever actually did win an Emmy, but a lot of people really liked her in that. All right, Koa, what 1708 writes, Cloverfield, Smallville edition. Oh, yeah, again, because of J.J. Abrams' connection to Cloverfield. Is that what we're talking about? Maybe. If so, that's a deep cut. All right, Brandon Plummer writes, John, I'm sure you don't remember, but I wrote in before about wanting J.J. Abrams to make the next Superman movie so badly. Please let this be true. I can't wait if it is. Sorry, Rob, I know you're not a huge J.J. fan. Don't lose too much sleep over this if it's true. And again, whereas Rob is 100% convinced that J.J. will direct it, I never heard anybody say specifically that JJ would direct it. He may take over the Superman property and may produce it with his Bad Robot production house, but he might get somebody else to come in and direct it. He's done that before. So he might get somebody else to direct it, or he might direct it himself. Either way, it's looking like it's going to be Henry Cavill that does it, and that'll be a good day. The day they officially announce that will be a very good day, at least to me. An anonymous viewer writes, Joggin Williams' first Oscar win was for Fiddler on the Roof. You probably meant John Williams. Was that his first Oscar win? In 1972. I can't remember how many Oscar nominations John Williams has. I think it's like 7,842 or something like that. It's absolutely crazy. That is some good movie trivia there. Anonymous viewer, that his first Oscar win was for Fiddler. Nice one. I like that. All right. Adam Hamblett writes, forgot to put my name on the John Williams. Oh, there you go, Adam. Nice one, Adam. Well done. On the Roof. Side note, is it morally acceptable to slap a coworker that says John Williams is overrated as the GOAT film composer? Here's the thing. I do not think it is morally acceptable to do that. However, I think if you did that and you were brought to court, I think any judge would probably throw it out. Why did you slap that man, sir? Your Honor, he said John Williams isn't the GOAT. Case dismissed. I think most judges would then at that moment, case dismissed, and then the judge will slap the guy as well. Just saying that. All right, Brizzle writes, my favorite franchises are Star Trek, Star Wars, and Superman. My least favorite directors are J.J. Abrams and Zack Snyder. Been a rough 10 years. Also, bailed on my AT&T stock. Don't think pop in price is coming since HBO Max is a bust. I would say, though, I think their launch was a bust. I don't think HBO Max long term is going to be a bust. They've got too much quality content. They're just too good at creating great content. I'm just very disappointed because you guys have known the last number of months I've been all HBO Max is coming, HBO Max is coming. I've been so excited about it. And then, they find out they're not even coming out on Roku. They're like some of the things. So they clearly botched the launch. But that doesn't mean it is overall going to be a bust. So, and hey, listen, I am personally a big fan of Zack Snyder. I respect J.J. Abrams. I don't love everything he does. I wasn't a fan of Super 8. I love The Force Awakens. I really don't like The Rise of Skywalker. I really do like his Star Trek movies. So J.J. Abrams to me is hit and miss. But I think he's got a lot of very high potential stuff, and I respect what he's been able to do very much. So it'll be curious to see what happens there. But yeah, if you're not a fan of Zack Snyder, if you're not a fan of J.J. Abrams, and yet your favorite franchises are Star Wars, Star Trek, and Superman, that does make for a pretty awful perfect storm for you, Bristol, and my condolences on that, brother. All right, Honest Asian Guy writes, hey, Johns, today's recommendation is 2003's Hong Kong action film Running on Karma. I'm not familiar with that one. Story revolves around a monk turned bodybuilder. Okay, I'm sold. Nothing else needs to be said. I'm sold. It revolves around a monk turned bodybuilder who uses his magical powers to try and change the destiny of a female cop who has befriended him. That sounds wacky to me, but it didn't matter, Honest Asian Guy. You had me at Monk who turns into a bodybuilder. You've got me. I'm hooked. I'm going to type this one out. What's it called? Running on Karma. All right. I've got this one. I got this one bookmarked now. I'm at least gonna have to go and watch the trailer of that, because that just sounds way too fascinating to me. All right, Ryan Wells writes, "Hey John and Rob, with the developments over the last week for the Snyder Cut and Cavill's return, do you think that this has been a plan by the new WB CEO to get the DCEU on track? I believe Pattinson could be Grayson taking up the cowl." That is absolutely not true. That's not true at all. Matt Reeves has been attached to this for almost 3 years. He's already very much explained what this Batman is, and all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, unless legitimate new information comes to light, which, hey, we got to change our perspectives when new information comes to light. That's what rational people do. But I don't believe that's true at all. Getting the DCU back on track, they've got the DCU back on track without any of this. Right? They started going in a different direction. They focused more on standalone films. They changed the tone of their films. Aquaman was such a departure. Now, I prefer Man of Steel over Aquaman by about 100 times. But Aquaman's a good, fun little film, and the reality is that change of tone, because the tone of Aquaman is so vastly different than Batman vs. Superman or anything else was. That resulted in them having their first billion-dollar film. And then they continued on doing something different, and they did Shazam, which I think is the second best movie the DCEU has done, just behind Man of Steel. I think Shazam is a wonderful little film. Super high critic ratings, audience ratings. It's just a wonderful film. Now they're moving forward with a sequel for it. They did a great job. Then they tried their new direction of doing stuff outside of shared cinematic universe by doing Joker, another billion-dollar film that won Academy Awards and was nominated for Best Picture of the Oscar. They've already changed their direction. They've already got the DCU back on track. They're already back on track. But it is becoming more and more apparent to me, and I don't know this for a fact, this is just me as a fan observing. It's becoming more and more apparent to me that as good of an overall movie executive Kevin Tsujihara was, and for a lot of different things in a lot of different ways, Kevin Tsujihara did not get the DC properties. And he did not respect the DC properties the way he should have. And between the new leadership, not to mention the installation of Walter Hamada, who has really given new life to the DCEU, they've already gotten things back on track. So we'll see where things go from here. We'll see where because listen, you can like or dislike the new movies more or less than the old movies, but the reality is the new films have been far more successful, both with critical responses, audience responses, and box office responses. It's just been better received than the original films were. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see where they go from here. All right, next up. Jayzian23 writes, "What's good, John? Over under 50% J.J. Abrams makes a Superman movie. By the way, when I used to do Uber, I listened to your show and always got good compliments because they loved your content. You probably helped me get a high rating." Well, that's good. I'm glad to help out. Jayzian, I'm glad to help. The Jay Zion, is that Jayzian or Jay Zion? Whatever. I'm glad I could help that out. Listen, I'm not going to go with Rob of 100%, but considering the people who are telling me that this is happening were the same ones who gave me the Nightwing stuff, the actual cost of the Snyder stuff, and the Ben Affleck out as Batman stuff, I'm going to go 85%. I'm going to go 85% that JJ is doing a Superman movie, whether he's just producing or directing, and it's going to be Henry Cavill. That's just the conclusion we've come to here. That's what I believe. And Rob is at 100% on that, so we'll see where we go with that. Table 9 guy writes, "Hey, John, with Warner Brothers putting upwards of $70 million into Zack Snyder's Justice League cut, seems like they could have larger DCEU plans. I've seen rumors that AT&T and Warner Brothers want Affleck back as Batman. I'd love that, but who the heck knows? Maybe Pattinson becomes an Elseworld story." I mean, listen, we've said from day one that's very possible. We've said for years that this new Batman could be treated outside of the DCEU, right? From the very beginning, people were asking, how do you reconcile the differences of age and everything between the new Batman and what Ben Affleck's Batman was? We've said from day one that this Batman could very well be, and probably likely will be, outside of that continuity. I don't know that for a fact. Let's be clear. I don't know that for a fact. I'm just speculating. But we've been saying that for a long time. But unless the rumors, anybody can say a rumor. Until like a Deadline, a Variety, a Hollywood Reporter comes out and says, you know, that they actually are looking at and talking to Ben Affleck about getting Ben Affleck back again. I don't think that's ever going to happen. As much as I would joy jism all over the place, if that, because you guys know my affection for Ben Affleck as Batman. I love Ben Affleck as Batman. I want that very, very badly, but I won't believe that until I see actual information. Until I see actual real information, I don't believe that's the case. I just won't believe it. I can't allow myself to hope like that. But dude, yeah. Oh God. Yeah, I'll make a mess. I mean, I'll make a mess if we find out Ben Affleck is going to be back as Batman. I'll make an absolute mess. But no, I really don't think there's any legitimacy to those things. But hey, that's just me making a guess. I'm just guessing. Who knows? We'll find out. We'll find out. All right, Lowell writes, hello, everyone. When I found out about HBO Max not being on Roku, my heart sunk. However, my girlfriend has a Chromecast, which enables me to connect. Hopefully, HBO gets their act together because I want to watch Space Ghost Coast to Coast. Oh, God, I love Space Ghost Coast to Coast. By the way, the late, great John Schnepp actually was an editor on Space Ghost Coast to Coast. As a matter of fact, I bet a lot of, like, everybody knew he worked on Metalocalypse and all that kind of stuff, but not a lot of people remember that the late, great John Schnepp was actually an editor on Space Ghost Coast to Coast. And I loved Space Ghost Coast to Coast. That was so good. So yeah, there are workarounds. There are definitely workarounds. And I'm glad you pointed that out, Lowell, because there are workarounds, but like how they had years to plan this. They had years to negotiate, years to get their ducks in a row and be ready to launch. And how they launched without being on the major streaming platforms, to me, is inexcusable. Like, somebody should lose their job over that. That is absolutely inexcusable that they weren't able to make those deals happen when they had all the time in the world to do it. So I don't know. It's weird. But yes, there are workarounds. You can find workarounds. All right, Jet writes, Cavill is 007 or Man of Steel. Could he do both? There's no reason he can't do both. Samuel Jackson is in 18 different movies a year. Like, remember, the actors, it doesn't actually take that much time for an actor to make a movie, right? The actors are actually on set for maybe 2-3 months. Like, literally, there's a reason. Dwayne The Rock Johnson was putting out 2 to 3 movies a year for a while there. An actor literally could do 4 movies a year. And that's if they're the lead star. If an actor is the lead star, they could do up to 4 movies per year with them as the lead star. There is no reason. I would love to see Henry Cavill as James Bond. I think there's a lot of other actors that would make a great James Bond as well. But remember, Henry Cavill was the runner-up to play James Bond behind Daniel Craig. He was the runner-up to play James Bond behind Daniel Craig. And he's only gotten better. And after seeing him in The Man from U.N.C.L.E., I would love to see him as James Bond. And there's no reason, again, a lot of other actors could play Bond and they'd be great too. But there is absolutely no reason in the world why Henry Cavill theoretically could not be Superman and James Bond at the same time. There's no reason in the world why it couldn't be. There's nothing to prevent that at all. Anyway, so that's just my thoughts on that. All right, D writes, hey, John, what do you think about them doing a Ben Affleck Batman 10-episode series on HBO Max? Also, you can get HBO Max through your YouTube TV app. I know, but I hate getting sub-apps. Like, I know through Amazon Prime, I can also sign up to Showtime through Amazon. I don't like doing sub-apps. It just becomes too convoluted. I like opening my menuing system. There's my HBO. There's my YouTube TV. There's my Amazon Prime. There's my Netflix. There's my Hulu. There's my Disney Plus. There's my ESPN. I just like having that all there. I don't like having to do sub-subscriptions. You know what I mean? Because it also affects their user interface. The user interface is different. Listen, it's not going to happen. But God, I would love it. Anything that brings Ben Affleck back as, you can say, John, what about 5 Ben Affleck movies as Batman? Sure. Hey, John, what about 5 seasons of Ben Affleck? Sure. Anything with Ben Affleck back as Batman, I would totally, joy jism all over the place. But there's no actual real information out there that supports that. Right now, like Robert says, we base opinions and thoughts on the information we have on hand right now. And right now, the information we have on hand says, to me at least, from my breakdown, is that we're never going to see Ben Affleck as Batman again. But God, I would love it. And if the information we have available to us changes, great, then we'll change the way we look at it. But I don't, as much as I would love it, no, I don't think it's ever going to happen. Hope it does, though. Alpha O writes, like you, I love Man of Steel. After what happened to episode 9, to appease fans and knowing a lot of fans rejected Cavill's Superman, should we worry about what JJ's Superman would be like? I hope he gives us his version and not a reaction to Man of Steel mixed reception. I mean, I don't know. Because you got to remember, in dealing with Star Wars, you're dealing with a very different kind of a thing, right? It's not just a normal set of circumstances like a normal movie. Star Wars is so different, and so much is at stake from a company point of view and whatever. But yeah, listen, a lot of what they did in The Rise of Skywalker was clearly trying to appease the people who were complaining about things. Rey can't be a nobody. Okay, we'll change what we were going to do, and we'll suddenly now say she's somebody. They never should have done that. He should have stuck to his plan. But they reacted. But I think Star Wars is a unique situation. And on top of that, I'm going to sit here and optimistically hope that J.J. Abrams probably learned a lot from that experience. It's like, oh, hey, when you just curtail to what people say you should do in the movie, bad things happen. So maybe. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. But again, a Superman situation would be very different from a Star Wars situation. And I'm hoping that JJ probably learned a bunch of really, really valuable lessons moving forward because of his Rise of Skywalker experience. At least that's what I'm going to choose to optimistically believe and hope. So we'll have to wait and find out. It's a good question to raise, though, Alpha. It's a good question to raise. All right, anonymous viewer writes, once again, another streaming service decided that it doesn't want my money because I don't live in America. Well, remember, though, it's not that, like when Disney Plus launched and when it's not always possible for certain services to launch in all these different territories at the same time. There's a lot of legal issues. There's territorial rights. There's existing licensing deals. There's a million different things. It is a very, very complicated, interconnected and tangled web. When you talk about licensing agreements, territorial rights, all this kind of stuff, it's something that can take longer to navigate in certain territories than others. It's not that they just know, they're like, I don't know what country you're from, so let's just pretend you're from Ireland. I don't know why I'm picking Ireland, but let's just say you're from Ireland right now. It's not like HBO Max went, screw Ireland. We don't care about Ireland. Screw them. It's not that. It's probably more likely a situation of the fact that they have to have, territorial rights got to be worked out. Licensing deals have to expire first. It's the same. Look, Disney Plus faced the same thing when they were launching, but eventually they do launch in all the territories. It's just sometimes it takes longer in other places than the ones that we're in. All right, Jaron Morris writes, okay, John, follow me here. What if Mike Tyson fights and dominates in 4 fights straight, and he fought Tyson Fury and KOs him in 22 seconds? Okay, that's a lot of fantasy, but okay. What would be said about the great Iron Mike Tyson? P.S. I don't think that would happen. I mean, there are some people who think Mike Tyson is already the greatest fighter of all time. If he were to do that, it would cement him. But here's the thing, Jaron. What if John Campea did that? What if John Campea became a professional boxer, went in and fought, how many did you say? 4 top-ranked guys in a row, and I dominated all of them. And then I stepped into the ring with Tyson Fury and knocked out Tyson Fury in 22 seconds. Well, I'd be the greatest sports story in history. So the same is true of Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson cannot beat Tyson Fury. Just no. I believe there are professional fighters that Mike Tyson can beat today. Yes. He looks great, by the way. And he's still Mike Tyson. But there is no way, even if he was allowed to go in there with a sledgehammer, there's no way Mike Tyson can beat a Tyson Fury. There's no universe where that's even a remote possibility. But yes, theoretically, in a fantasy land, if that were to happen, Mike Tyson would be cemented. If he were to come back into his 50s and dominate one of the most dominant heavyweight champions we've ever had, and I think it would cement him to a lot of people is the greatest fighter of all time. It's not going to happen, but I think theoretically that's what it would. All right, Senpaigar writes, I don't like Kevin Spacey after what has come to light, but I still like the movies like Fred Claus, 21, Horrible Bosses, Baby Driver, The Usual Suspects. Is it weird that it feels wrong to like those films now? Listen, I've actually talked about that before. The Kevin Spacey thing is really awkward because, and I can't rationalize this. I'm just telling you this is the way my mind works. If I were to find out Kevin Spacey was doing another movie, I could not bring myself to watch it. But all the movies I've seen of his that I saw before the controversy, I would have no problem rewatching those. I can't explain why. Like, I can watch Usual Suspects or Baby Driver or whatever. I can watch those movies today and not even have a second thought about it. But if Kevin Spacey were to put out a new movie today, I couldn't bring myself to watch it. I can't explain that. I'm not saying that's the right approach. I'm not saying that's the right way to think about it. I'm just saying that's the way my mind has kind of dealt with it, and I can't explain why. But so I see where you're coming from on that, Senpaigar. I absolutely 100% see where you're coming from on that. All right, let's see. John McKinney writes, one of two. Normally, I don't like sympathetic villains. There are exceptions. Darth Vader, Magneto, Sinestro, and Mr. Freeze. Just because a villain thinks they're the good guy doesn't mean we have to feel bad for them. No, that is absolutely true. What you just said there is absolutely true. Erin has said she knows... Oh, sorry. John McKinney. Where is this part 2? There it is. There's part 2. Lex Luthor, Norman Osborn, Judge Frollo, Emperor Palpatine, Darkseid, Apocalypse, Doctor Doom are villains who believe they are right. However, they are narcissistic sociopaths and are pure evil. See the difference? Yeah, listen, there's not saying there's a formula like any... For a villain to be a good villain, they have to see themselves as the hero. No. But that can work great, especially since a lot of villains are just very straight. Like, the Emperor never saw himself as the hero. Frollo never saw himself as the hero. Darkseid doesn't see himself as the hero. But they think they're right. They do think they're right. Every villain thinks they're right. Not every villain thinks they have the moral high ground. Right? Not every villain thinks they have the moral high ground. When you take like a General Zod in Zack Snyder's Man of Steel, when you take a Thanos in Infinity War, you are now dealing with villains that not only think they are right, they actually believe they have the moral high ground. And there's just something, again, the Emperor is a great example of that. Emperor is one of the greatest villains of all time, and he didn't think he had the moral high ground. It's not the formula. I'm just saying it's very rare. There's a unique aspect to a villain in a film when they not only think they're right, because every villain does, but they actually think they're the hero. And the hero of the movie is actually the villain, the evil villain, because they have the moral high ground. What they are doing is right and just and good. And those, like for instance, Chiwetel Ejiofor's operative in the Serenity movie, that character is terrifying because he had an ironclad conviction that what he was doing was morally right. Those characters, but you're right. It doesn't mean it's a formula that you can just replicate and therefore do this and it makes your villains better, do this and it makes your villains worse. You're absolutely right about that. All right, Tom DeHart writes, from one Man of Steel fan to another, you should check out the Prime 1 studio Henry Cavill as Superman on Sideshow Collectibles. I stumbled across it while looking for Hot Toys, thanks Rob, and had to get it. Love the show and stay safe. Oh, dude, listen, I've seen a number of Hot Toys renditions of Henry Cavill as Superman. And the only reason I don't own it is because I can't afford to spend $300 on toys, on a single toy. That's right. My entire collection of Hot Toys comprises of 4. And I only bought 2 of them. 2 of them were gifts. And 2 of them I actually bought. But like they're $250 to $350 a piece. Otherwise my shelves, there wouldn't be Pops on my shelves. And I do love my Pops. I love Pops. But my shelves behind me would be filled with Hot Toys if they only weren't so damn expensive, Tom. All right, Nexus writes, if you ask me, the perfect title for a Superman film by JJ starring Henry Cavill would be Man of Tomorrow. That's a cool one. It would send a clear message that while it's not Zack Snyder's Man of Steel 2, it's clearly a follow-up with the same lead actor. It's impossible to say what the right title of a movie would be when we don't know what the movie is. Right? Without knowing what the movie is, it's hard to say what the right title of it is. Man of Tomorrow is a very cool sounding title. It would sound like a follow-up to Zack Snyder's thing. And by the way, I'm just throwing this out there. I'm not saying I've heard anything. I'm just throwing this out there. What's to say that J.J. Abrams, with all the freedom that Warner Brothers is giving J.J. Abrams, what's to say that J.J. Abrams doesn't say, yeah, I'm going to do Superman, and I want Henry Cavill back as my Superman, and I'm going to get to pick my own director, and I like Zack Snyder. I'm going to pick Zack Snyder to direct another Superman movie. Who's to say that couldn't happen? I'm not saying it will happen. I'm not even saying it's likely to happen. I'm just saying at this point, we don't know what's going on. So, like, let's say J.J. Abrams gets put in charge of a new Superman, and he decides to bring on Zack Snyder to direct it. And you call it Man of Tomorrow, which then is a perfect follow-up to Man of Steel, Man of Tomorrow. Makes it all seem in the same thing. But again, until we know what the movie's about, it's hard to say what the perfect title for it would be. All right, John Campea, who's clearly not me, Israel Asanya, who of course is the last style bender. You're taking everything I worked for. You can ask Chael, who I used to dominate in sparring back in my couture gym days, who the one who knocks is. After a pregnant pause would say, John Campea, the real money fight. Keep running. Yeah, no. But I'll tell you what, just because you bring up the topic, there is a new UFC fight tomorrow. Woodley's coming back. I believe Woodley's going to dominate that fight. A lot of people tell me I'm crazy. I think the only welterweight in the world, I really believe this, I think the only welterweight in the world that Woodley can't beat is Usman. I think Usman's the only welterweight in the world that Woodley can't beat. And so I actually think the welterweight division is going to be very stagnant for a while because you're going to have a clear champion and a clear number one in Woodley, and everybody else is behind both of them. But Woodley can't beat Usman. So it's going to be kind of a stagnant division for a little bit because we have a really dominant champion and I believe a really dominant number one contender. But now watch, Woodley loses tomorrow night and we'll be right back to square one. Ben Rayner writes, hey, John, I have to be honest, and not knowing about this HBO Max and Roku is the worst part for me. I kept checking the news every day. How likely you think this will get fixed soon? I hope they're working on it, and I wish they would say something about it. Yeah, so far, HBO Max is staying pretty quiet on it. Amazon and Roku have both been pretty vocal about it. I gotta believe 4 weeks. Within 4 weeks, they will get this figured out. I don't know that for sure, and maybe it's just wishful thinking, but I gotta believe 4 weeks because the fact that, number one, that they launched without Roku and Amazon being available, but number two, that we didn't even know that it wasn't going to be available on HBO or on Roku or on Amazon Fire until like the day before the service launch. I never even heard there was a possibility that it wouldn't be available on those streaming platforms until like the day before the launch. That's bad communication. That is bad communication. And HBO is already having a problem with communication and properly communicating, like, so the audiences understand what's the difference between HBO, HBO Go, HBO Max, HBO Now. What's the difference? There's so much confusion out there. They are doing a terrible job in their communications department. Terrible job in their communications department. All right, Curtis Lopez writes, you're a frequent Disneyland goer. Ann and I are both annual pass holders. We are. So at that crossroads past Main Street and the Walt Disney and Mickey statue, where do you usually go? Straight through the castle, left towards Adventureland, or right towards Tomorrowland? Normally we go left towards Adventureland. That's the way we normally go. Because usually the first place I like to go to when I'm at Disneyland, well, now that Galaxy's Edge is open, the first place I go is Galaxy's Edge. But normally, the first place we go to is Indiana Jones. Indiana Jones is still my favorite ride at Disneyland. That's usually the first place that we go. So it's usually off to the left. That's the way we usually go. Interesting question, Curtis. Thanks for that. Mike Will 27 writes, my top 5 Mike Drasko's films. Number 5, Double Dragon. I like Double Dragon. You and me both, man. I like Double Dragon. Number 4, American Samurai. Number 3, Drive. Number 2, Only the Strong. Should be a remake. Number 1, Brotherhood of the Wolf. Brotherhood of the Wolf is one we've been talking about for a while because it's got, why am I freezing on his name? Who's in the Oceans movies? Hold on a second. I'm freezing on his name. French actor. Herd of the Wolf, IMDb, and I'm hungry like the wolf. 2001 film. Come on, open up here. Here we go. The guy I am thinking of, Vincent Cassel. That's right. Vincent Cassel in that one as well. I really love them. And by the way, Mark Dacascos, I always don't know how to pronounce his name properly. Well, of course, his best role all time is that of the Iron Chef. He is the chairman of Kitchen Stadium. Iron Chef, à la cuisine! Like, that's whenever I think of him. In the words of my uncle, à la cuisine! And then everybody says, I loved him as that. And of course, he was just in John Wick. He was the big bad guy in John Wick. But Vincent Cassel, who was in Brotherhood of the Wolf with him, he seriously, because most of his films have been foreign films, he's seriously one of the great actors of our generation. He is seriously a tremendous actor. And that was a good example of one. All right. Next up. Where are we at here? An anonymous viewer writes, just watched the Bigfoot scene from Strange Wilderness 2008 with Steve Zahn again. I don't know if I've ever laughed harder at any scene. It's so random and funny. Bigfoot comes out of the cave and filming, and the group suddenly opens fire on him. I don't even remember the scene. Honestly, whenever I think of Bigfoot, let me see if I remember this. Abominable. It was a... Come on, where's the company? Oh, they're not... Where's the movie? Did I... Okay, I'm not pulling it up IMDb. Listen, there's an old Bigfoot movie. And I'm positive the name of the movie was Abominable. It might have been... Maybe it was Sasquatch? I don't think it was. I think it was called Abominable. Anyway, there's this old horror movie from like 2002, 2003 that is the most ridiculous Bigfoot horror movie of all time. Like Bigfoot would come out of the wilderness and eat people and stuff. It was just the craziest thing, and I can't. Anyway, and I just looked it up, and I'm not finding an IMDb. Maybe it was a different title. Maybe it was a different title. Anyway, I'll check into that one again later. All right, just a couple more questions, guys. We've already gone overtime today. Evan Ryan writes, hey, John, over under 30% that we will see Liam Neeson in the Obi-Wan series. Thanks. I'm going to go under, but not zero, but I'm going to go well under 30%. I'd peg it closer to 6 or 7%. So very unlikely, but possible. First of all, they got to get the series made. Let's start there with them getting the series made. All right, Adam writes, hey, John, watched your Man of Steel editorial, and I loved it. Thank you so much, man. I appreciate that. With Cavill coming back, we last saw him run into the alley and fly off at the end of Justice League, at the end of JLA. So that got me thinking, is Clark back from the dead? Just thought that was funny. Thanks. I mean, well, listen, a lot of times the issue about how do they bring Superman back? I mean, Clark apparently died. Well, that's easy. That's bringing back a character they say died has been the easiest thing in movies ever. They just say, oh my gosh, the body they found wasn't actually Clark Kent. Clark Kent got actually bumped on the head in the destruction and had amnesia and has been off, and now he's back. I mean, it's the easiest thing in the world. A lot of people have written to me before and freaked out about, oh my gosh, they can never bring Superman back now because he can never be Clark Kent because they said Clark Kent is dead and there's no way to explain that. And I'm like, come on, are you serious? They've been doing so-and-so who they thought was dead returns ever since soap operas in the 1970s. I mean, that's the easy part. Bringing back Clark Kent is the easy part. There's a million different ways you can do it and won't cause them any problems whatsoever. All right. Evan Ryan writes, hey, John, what WWE wrestler would you like to see have a movie made about them? I wish the Chris Benoit movie happened. A lot of problems with that, though. You know, I think it was going to be called Crossface, which is, of course, was an abbreviation on the name of his finisher move. Bret Hart. Probably. Best there is, best there was, best there ever will be. That's probably the one I'd like to see made, is one about Bret Hart. Because then you're going into everything about the Montreal screw job and all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to go Bret Hart on that. All right, Mike Thompson. Last two questions, guys. Are Are the guys at Pixar okay? Between Coco, Onward, and Soul, they sure have been making a lot of movies about death lately. I just think everybody wants to tell stories that resonate emotionally. You know? When you're talking about like Coco, Onward, Soul, and we haven't seen Soul yet, so we don't know what that's going to be about. Onward was about dealing with, you know, a couple of guys who dealt with loss. I just love the fact that Pixar films deal with, you know, heavier emotional issues, emotionally resonant issues. And I love the fact that they do that. I mean, that's part of life. It's part of life. All right, Jaron Morris writes, John, you skipped my second question under Tom DeHart. Let me take a quick look. Oh, there we go. Okay, there's Jaron's. Okay, sorry, I missed that one. All right, Jaron writes, Erin has said she knows of Last of Us, but hasn't seen it or played it, but she knows of it because of the news about the TV show. So, if she was to watch The Last of Us cutscene movie, over under 42%, she would have some serious cry time. Also, what scene would do it for her? Well over 42% that she would have cry time. There's cry time moments in that. To me, the most emotional part is of course when the young kid, you know, there's the two brothers, the older brother and the younger brother. The younger brother gets bit, doesn't tell everybody. In the morning, they realize and they had to kill him. That's as emotionally resonant as you can get in a video game. It's tough getting real emotion in a video game. To be honest, I very, very rarely feel it, even in like the best of the cutscene movies. But that one in Last of Us. Yeah, that one's a heavy one, dude. That one's a heavy one. All right, guys, that'll do it for today's installment of the John Campea Show. Thank you so much for being here and making this show part of your day. Listen, a lot of things you could be doing today, but you decided to spend part of it with us here today, and we all thank you very much for that. Special thanks to Robert Meyer Burnett. He'll, of course, be back on Monday. And a special thank you to all you guys who sent in the questions, not just because you gave us great fun things to talk about, but also because you support the channel while you're doing it. And by the way, for those of you who are Patreon supporters, I forgot to mention this earlier. In the next couple of days, I'm going to move my mic for a second. See the shirt? Yeah, for those of you who are Patreon supporters, keep your eyes on the Patreon posts over the next couple of days because we're going to be giving away a bunch of these shirts to those of you who are Patreon supporters. We got about 10 of them that we're going to be giving away to you guys, so keep your guys' eyes open for that. Guys, don't forget, I'm going to be back tomorrow with Open Mic. I hope you guys will come back and join me for that. You can, of course, start sending in questions for Open Mic tomorrow now, if you'd like, by simply going to streamelements.com/movieblogtv/tip. Find the link in the top of the description of this video. All right, guys, thank you again so much for being here and making this show part of your day. My name is John Campea, and until next time, my friends, bye-bye.